We never know where life will lead us or what may hinder us along the way. But while every day can feel like one big question mark, it doesn't have to. With the right insights, strategies, and solutions from Western and Southern Financial Group, together we can look ahead to leave the unknown behind.
Football focus doing. Last week they had Brady. This week they got Brady. We're literally doing it differently from everybody else.
As a matter of fact, moving forward from this point on, I will not make reference to PFF.
Do you not understand that they are that way because you're Joe Flacco?
You just like to discredit things that people deserve credit for.
That you can't possibly be expected to defend that.
Talk about the game, Sam. So who cares about what people think about us?
Yeah, I like football, I like football season, all the things that go with it.
Welcome into the PFF NFL podcast. Steve Palazzolo back here with Sam Monson, and it is week 11 in the NFL, and we're going to preview every game except Thursday Night Football because we already did that yesterday, Sam.
Yeah.
On the Wednesday edition, which I know you already listened to or watched. If you haven't, go check it out because we previewed Patriots-Falcons, but it's time to get into all the week 11 games. How you doing, man?
Good. You?
Good. Feel good about my intro again.
That's another smooth one. It's good.
Back-to-back days.
Now you got to make sure that it doesn't cost you the ad reads like it did yesterday.
Yeah, we need a good show start to finish.
Right.
Here.
Just 100% perfection.
Extra ads today too.
Extra ads.
We have a lot of great sponsors who want to be a part of this, including that one. Look, PFF wants to be a part of this.
I don't think they're a sponsor.
Oh, well, they're the flagship of the show here. You get 25% off using the promo code NFLPod on any PFF subscription. I do suggest you go get in right now because we got all sorts of goodies coming out. We got all our betting stuff, our fantasy stuff, and of course the draft guide, both preseason version and the real version coming out in a couple months. So you get in right now, 365 days of access for 25% off using the promo code NFLPod. One housekeeping item, Sam, is that we're going to play some baseball Friday night at the University of Cincinnati. If we can get a catcher.
Yes.
Still looking for a catcher. If somebody's out there right now, live in YouTube land.
Turns out this is a hell of a lot harder than it seems like it should be.
This is my offseason. When I was a professional player in the offseason trying to find somebody to catch so that I could get my work in, I was professional. They paid me to play for 8 years. It was tough to find a catcher. It was tough to find somebody willing to catch 92 miles an hour with sink. You know what I mean?
Yeah?
Yeah.
Okay.
Not everybody wanted to do that.
Well, we need somebody.
We do.
So look,
we're still working on it.
We need somebody. If you're a catcher, if you're in the Cincinnati area,
somebody from like St. X or something like that. Is there a catcher from St. X that listens to us?
Want to be part of a cool video, the podcast, the whole shebang at UC? It'll be awesome. But we need somebody because otherwise we're gonna have to do this in 2 installments.
Can Renner throw the gear on?
We need the gear as well. Like that's the problem. The catcher needs to bring his own crap because we don't have any.
Come on, UC. If UC's backup catcher is listening to us too, I mean, are we allowed to give gifts for his name, image, and likeness now?
We were working on the basis that now it's an NIL thing, right? We're going to be using his likeness because he'll be on the video,
right? Like I always tell the story. My college coach bought me that bacon, egg, and cheese sandwich from Dunk's.
Could have got you
illegally back in 2002, and I'm probably ineligible now retroactively. But now we can, for name, image, and likeness, we can. Maybe
that's what I'm saying.
Get a Chick-fil-A gift card, or,
we could hook the guy up.
A 30-pack of beer or whatever he wants, you know? So
we need a catcher. It will be worth your while.
So we're going to do that, presumably.
So anyway, catcher or not, we're going to be doing it tomorrow. The only question is whether the stretch goal part of it, i.e. me catching, happens tomorrow or whether we need to somehow reconvene and do that at a different time. But the batting part will definitely be happening tomorrow, even if you have to throw the ball at nothing and just recycle the ball once it hits the fence or whatever the hell is going to be behind me. That part will be happening.
That part will be happening.
Also, my favorite new part of this, right? Initially, the dream was to just catch one and hit it far.
Yeah.
Tyler apparently is going to be bringing his drone, safe in the knowledge that there's no possible way the drone can be hit by the baseball. I'm just saying that would be kind of funny, I understand it's quite an expensive piece of equipment, and to him it wouldn't be funny. I might laugh if we nail one and it takes the drone out of the sky.
Yeah, I don't think that's going to happen.
I don't either, but
it's a better goal maybe than
you've got to go in with a positive mental attitude to these things, right?
It is true. I can't wait. I'm going to get my uppers, coffee, and pretty much just coffee at this point.
You also sent out an appeal on Twitter for something called Spider Tank. Is that legal? Am I going to need to have somebody inspect?
Do we inspect the ball? Is there a committee? Are there rules on what?
Yeah.
I'll bring the baseballs too, by the way.
Oh yeah, I'm sure you will. Probably scuffed
Spider
up and stuff.
tack is now frowned upon by Major League Baseball.
Frowned upon or outlawed?
Pretty sure it's always been illegal, but guys have gotten away with it. But I don't know. Do you want to adhere to those rules?
Yes.
Are we under?
Yes.
Major
we are
League Baseball
under
rules?
MLB We are under MLB regulations here.
I'm just saying.
I don't want you
spin rate's not what it once was, and Spider Tack would.
No, I don't want you doing anything that would enhance your ability to throw the ball with movement.
I also made a call for Buster Posey to maybe catch now that he's retired.
That was ambitious.
Just a couple retired ball players having some fun and reliving the glory days of the Fresno Grizzlies 2009 team. And I haven't heard back from Buster. He's not he's not on Twitter a lot.
Shocker.
Yeah, he's got 4 kids too, much like me, and it's busy times when you got 4 kids.
I'm guessing he has more help with a
probably
with a proper professional like MLB career behind him.
Probably has a nanny or two over there, Buster. But anyway, we're still trying to make that all happen, and we're gonna do it. You ready to get into the games?
Yeah.
Anything else we got to touch on here?
No, I don't think so. I mean, we're doing that. The link is still there on my pinned tweet for donations. We are still taking over, so donate. But that will happen tomorrow. I would imagine Monday we may have some video evidence. I don't know how long it'll take Tyler to put it together. Maybe Wednesday, maybe Thursday, whatever. It will be coming soon, but it's happening. It's happening on Friday.
All right, let's get into Week 11. And we always start with our games of the week, best games of the week. And the Cowboys and the Chiefs has to be the actual game of the week. 2 of the best teams in the NFL. And now that the Chiefs are completely back, the tone has changed again. It is amazing that we're not supposed to ride the roller coaster here, Sam, at PFF. We're not roller coaster riders. We're consistent and let the data tell the story. But we fall into the trap of the sky is falling, and now the Chiefs are back within 4 days. I mean, it's all changed. So the Chiefs are back, and they're favored by 2.5 at home against the Dallas Cowboys. What are we looking for in this game?
Did we fall into that trap, or are we just repeating the trap that others have fell into?
I don't know. Well, what was the trap? Was the trap overreacting to a 3-game stretch and a little bit more from the Chiefs' offense failing?
Well, here's the thing. If your journey over the last couple of weeks goes a little bit like this, the Chiefs are fine. There's no problem whatsoever. The only issue is turnovers. Everything else.
Name names.
There's a bunch of people. I don't need to name names. Several people were of this opinion. And I'm just saying, if your journey was, okay, everything is fine. There's no problem with the Chiefs offense other than turnovers. And those are random and fluky. They will go away. And when they do, everything is good. And then all of a sudden, oh, wow. Actually, the Chiefs' offense is totally broken. Even when they're winning games, they can't get anything done. It's just a disaster. When somebody shows them a too high look, they can't even function. This is a mess. And then, oh, look, there we go. We played the Raiders. They can score again. Everything's good. If that was your journey, you were overreacting and almost certainly wrong in every possible step along the way. If your journey didn't look like that, though, you might be okay. You might have charted some kind of middle ground through this rapids of madness. I think the Chiefs offense has had some problems all the way through the year. They didn't all get fixed they didn't all manifest just in those couple of games that they won where they didn't look great. And they didn't all get fixed just because they played the Raiders. Now, the interesting thing is now they get to face Dallas, whose defense comes from the same family tree as the Raiders. It's not quite the same. They do mix it up a little bit more. But the Cowboys are essentially faced with the same dilemma that the Raiders had last week. Over here, is the game plan that slows down Kansas City this year. Over here is what you do, usually. Now, which game plan do you want to roll with? Because the last team that stayed over here got their ass kicked. Do you want to try that again because you think you have a better shot at it? Or do you want to go over here to the thing that's been working? And then, of course, the other X factor in here is, did simply playing a game like that for Kansas City fix a lot of the
Spark
problems?
them and
right.
them,
Like, did it just
track,
shake them out of their funk and remind them that they're an elite offense and that they can score at will and all of the things? Like, even if Dallas does game plan number one, the one that should function against the Chiefs, does it work anymore, right? Because let's say they do that, they force Kansas City to be patient and to take the underneath stuff. Maybe they can now because all of a sudden they're riding a high wave of confidence after one game.
Yeah, I'm, as always, kind of in the middle of all of that stuff, right? Without a strong take either way. I was of the mind that the Chiefs aren't as bad as they showed for 3 straight weeks, but did run into particular game plans that took them off their game. So did we actually learn anything new when to your point, the Raiders didn't roll out the game plan that had been slowing them down? I don't know that we did. And that it did feel like old school Chiefs for a couple reasons. First off, Patrick Mahomes threw for over 400 yards and 5 touchdowns, but also he had some interception luck bouncing back his way with a couple dropped interceptions, whether they were all his fault or not. They happened. Those were game changers. And we saw an offense create explosive plays with Mahomes not necessarily playing his best game. He was fine. He was good. He put the ball in harm's way a couple times, but it wasn't a throw-for-throw dominant game from Patrick Mahomes. A couple nice ones in there, but still don't have the big-time throws. So I think a lot of the same concerns are still in there for the Chiefs. It's just going to be a matter of, will the Cowboys in this game, go away from what they do. They're not as single high, cover 1, cover 3 heavy as the Raiders. They are more likely to play man. They're 4th highest as far as just man coverage percentage in the NFL, Dallas. So they could play man. But I think they're also more likely to play man with extra helpers, so to speak, the way a Patriots team would play cover 1, but have their linebackers and their safeties give extra attention to Travis Kelce and Tyreek Hill and continue to make Byron Pringle beat you, right? You want to come into this game if you're Dallas and say, okay, Byron Pringle, Mecole Hardman, you guys, it's your game. Beat us. I think Dan Quinn in Dallas is more likely to do that. Yep.
I think that's true. I don't think they're going to roll. They're not going to pivot to like a pure, cover 2 type of defense. What I remain really interested by the fact that Patrick Mahomes essentially publicly said, this is the type of defense I don't want to play. Like, he told Chris on the broadcast or, in the production meetings or whatever, that that's not how he likes to play the game, right? He doesn't want to be forced into playing this conservative, boring, patient style of offense. He lives outside of that. He likes making the big plays, which is essentially just a giant bullhorn to every defense in the NFL to say, all right, he may beat you anyway, but he really doesn't want to do this. So, essentially the name of the game on defense is, let's put the opposition into a situation they don't want to be in because they're not going to be as good there. Mahomes just told everybody what that is. Now, it doesn't mean it will work, but absolutely, if you're capable of doing that, that should be your starting point. Like, make Patrick Mahomes do the thing that he has publicly said he doesn't want to do.
Yes, make him do it. And again, it's not completely foreign territory for the Chiefs to have teams try to take away deep shots and all that stuff. In the past, they have had success.
And obviously,
with it.
It's easier said than done, right?
Of course,
nobody goes out there with a defense designed to give up the deep.
They would have stopped it in 2018 if it was that easy. Right. They would have adjusted after 5 weeks instead of 3.5 years. So it will be a good cat and mouse game. The other stat or grade that stands out to me that I think is interesting, in the 3 weeks where the Chiefs' offense was horrible, they had 3 of their 4 best pass blocking grades. I've pointed this out before, right? The offensive line, at least from a pass pro standpoint, was not the reason that this passing attack was not working.
Yeah.
Last week, the Raiders actually got pressure. Like, Max Crosby had over 10 pressures. Again, they were
13.
moving Mahomes. 13 pressures. That's a monster
number. He had a
number.
win rate of 41% on like 40 rushes.
It's insane.
That's
a good
nuts.
win rate's about 20.
Yes.
A good one's 20.
Right.
And he was over 40.
And the lower the number of rushes you have, the easier it is to have an absurdly high win rate. To get a win rate of 41% from 39 rushes is madness.
And we'll talk about Crosby against the Bengals coming up soon, where if he does that again, could be a long day for Joe Burrow. But this was an example where if you were coming out of that game, there's no way you would be like, man, that Max Crosby really played a disruptive game. You might if you're really watching that, but it didn't affect anything because Mahomes threw for over 400 and 5 touchdowns, and the Chiefs scored 41 points. Nobody was saying Max Crosby dominated that game, but my point is they didn't have the best offensive line effort that they had had all season, but the offense was back clicking, and it was because they had open receivers. They had people to throw to, and Mahomes did make some of his magic on certain plays, right? So the offensive line is still good. They should probably play. They could. My point is they could lose again a bunch to Dallas, but it comes down to Mahomes making throws and the receivers getting open. And if that happens again, it's tough for Dallas to stop them. On the other side, Chiefs are trending in the right direction from a defensive standpoint. Three straight games in the green. It was against Daniel Jones. It was against Jordan Love, and it was against Derek Carr and the Raiders. That was the most impressive one, I would say, based off how the Raiders have been playing this year. Raiders still trying to find their way without their deep threat, but is this Chiefs defense back on track after grading, in the red and orange and the bad, first 5 or 6 weeks of the season?
That's a really fascinating part of this. Their defense was really good last week, but obviously the Raiders' offense has been sputtering the past couple of weeks as well. Dallas is in really good shape on offense now. Even if they don't have Tyron Smith back at left tackle, they showed last week that they've got some adjustments now for the fact that Terrence Steele is not going to be a particularly good left tackle. They were chipping. They were doing a lot of smart things to make sure that he wasn't one-on-one with pass rushers a lot. And that was against Atlanta, who don't have any pass rushers, right? So they were prepared with the offensive game plan to protect him, even though he was going to have about as easy a matchup as it's going to get. The Chiefs have some horses that are capable of beating him, but they have that protection inbuilt. Plus, Tyron Smith might be back anyway. And if he's back anyway, it's a completely different proposition. Then you have an entire offensive line in really good shape. Dak Prescott, those running backs that are doing an incredible job, the receivers that they can go 4 or 5 deep and make plays, tight ends, they have weapons. At that point, it seems really hard to imagine the Chiefs' defense slowing them down that much. So the question becomes, where is Kansas City's offense? Because we could be in for a real fun shootout in this game.
Yeah, I definitely expect Dallas to have a lot of success against the Chiefs defense. Again, unless you get just one of those weird games. The Denver game 2 weeks ago for Dallas was weird. And is it because was Dak just rusty coming back? And he wasn't even that bad. It was when he made a good throw, it got dropped. He missed a few throws as well. If Dak plays,
and that was the Terrence Steele game with no adjustments.
It was. Dak has been excellent against the blitz. Kansas City, third down, they're bringing zero blitz 20% of the time. That's a huge number. So they're going to attack, and I think the way you beat the blitz, again, it's less pass protection and more guys getting open, and no team is as equipped as the Cowboys to get people open quickly. Because they have Amari Cooper, they have CeeDee Lamb, they have Michael Gallup back. Dallas has all of the answers for the blitz. So looking at what Spags does defensively for the Chiefs, that side of the ball is going to be interesting as well. Do you actually attack Dak Prescott and the Cowboys? Because they have been torching the blitz so far this season.
Yeah, I think because of all the weapons they have, they are becoming one of those offenses that I don't want to go after that way.
Nobody has more first downs against the blitz through the air than Dak Prescott, and of course he missed a game. More touchdowns than anyone else, passer rating high, production's high, all of it. So that battle is going to be good. Again, I think I land somewhere in between on what the Chiefs are. There was no way they should have been as bad as they were defensively earlier in the year. So we just looking at a Chiefs team, which is what they were last year. They can game plan it up week to week. They're okay up front. Chris Jones can take over some games for whatever that's worth, and they're solid on the back end. I know Daniel Sorensen's been that guy. We're saying, he's been targeted this whole year, but L'Jarius Sneed and their corners are pretty good. They're okay. They're good enough. Rashad Fenton's grading well. I think the Chiefs are going to be okay defensively, but then you defer back to how to evaluate defense, and they're always going to take a back seat to a really good offense. So I think Dallas has a lot of success in this game.
Yeah.
And then it puts the pressure, to your point, on the Chiefs offense keeping up and what happens on that side of the ball. So what are you thinking in this one? Chiefs by 2.5 this week.
I like Dallas. I like Dallas to win on the road.
Really?
Yeah.
I'm back on the Kansas City bandwagon.
Oh, did you tot up last week? Where are we?
I don't think you want to see it. Last week.
Was it as bad as you the week before?
No.
Oh.
You were a game better.
Excellent.
You were 4-10 last week.
Great.
I was 7-7.
Huh.
So that brings my 4-week total and your 3-week totals now. I'm 27-25, my 4-week total, including my 10-2 that I kept track of.
Yeah.
If you take that out,
Less good, yeah.
yeah, you're 16-24.
That's not great.
It's not great.
No,
Go with
not great at all.
Go with Green Line.
This way, yeah, you should probably listen to Green Line.
Probably go.
Where does Green Line in this game? Let's find out. You could
We'll
go
find out.
look where Green Line is if you have a PFF subscription, which you can get 25% off if you use the promo code NFLPod. It's not even
There it
signing
is.
me in. I got to sign in. To
Oh
get
yeah,
Green Line.
I had to. I'll re-sign in too. Did they just? What'd they do today? Everybody have to sign in to your account today.
All right.
Over at PFF.
Green Line. So here we go. This is a perfect example, right? You could go with me with my terrible goddamn record of like 8 games under 500 or whatever I am, or you could go with Green Line, who thinks that the Chiefs not only will win but actually cover the 2.5.
Yeah,
The choice is yours. I'm not saying which is better or worse, but you know.
The Chiefs have vaulted back up to the top of our power rankings on the back of that one game. Now, it's not just the one game. This is the other reason why maybe we shouldn't have overreacted to 3 or 4 weeks. I mean, it's 3 years of evidence of what Patrick Mahomes is and what Tyreek Hill and Travis Kelce, what this offense is. So that's why they're back at the top. I'll take the Chiefs.
The offense was never as bad as the crisis, you know, like, oh no, the sky is falling. But neither is it true that the sky only started falling in the last 2 weeks. Like, the problems have been there through the entire season. They were just never as catastrophic as they looked because of all the turnovers.
The thing is, just like we talked about yesterday and how McVay has been at these pivotal points in his career, I think this is the first somewhat pivotal point in Mahomes' career, and him and Andy Reid and Eric Bieniemy all getting together and saying, okay, we're going to see this game plan again. Maybe it's not Dallas this week. It'll probably be Denver in Week 13. They like to play that style. We'll see if the Raiders in Week 14 adjust back. The Chargers will play that style again in Week 15, right? They're going to run into these game plans again. Do you have answers for it? You know, the Chiefs hit this pivotal point where you do have to make some adjustments. And so I don't know that we got enough answers in that Raiders game that the Chiefs are completely back, but here I am buying into it. I'll take the Chiefs to cover the 2.5. The other thing I want to buy into, Sam, Manscaped. They just launched their new products, including the all-new Ultra Premium Body Wash and 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. It's time to give yourself or someone who needs it the gift of beautiful skin, hair, and balls this holiday season. Go to manscaped.com and use promo code PFF for 20% off plus free shipping. Now, this week, we're giving away multiple Performance Package 4.0s. Rate and review the podcast right here, the PFF NFL podcast. Leave your email or some sort of contact, social media, whatever it might be, and we'll choose winners at the end of the week. Inside the Performance Package 4.0, you'll find the signature Lawnmower 4.0. This electric trimmer has proprietary advanced skin-safe technology to reduce cuts on your nuts, or maybe even your head, which we're going to try out. Maybe on your scalp.
We're going to try out?
Aren't you going to try that out?
I mean, whether I try it out or not, it's not a we. This is not a team participation
No,
sport.
not we. Like, we're a team, but that's going to be you maybe trying it out on your head, right?
I mean, maybe.
Scalp.
Yeah.
You should. It's waterproof, so you can use it in the shower. We already know it handles the rain, snow, and the sleet. We already know all that. We mentioned the 2-in-1 shampoo and conditioner. It has the key ingredients and benefits that include hydrating, nourishing, conditioning the scalp, so you could shave your head, throw the conditioner on your bald head, and strengthen your hair at the same time. Not you, but you know, other people could strengthen their hair at the same time. 'Tis the season to load up on Manscaped products. Get yourself, your dad, your brother, your friends, the best gift of all, Manscaped Performance Package 4.0. Get 20% off and free shipping with the code PFF at manscaped.com. 20% off with free shipping. Manscaped.com. Use the code PFF. Clean up your nuts and make Santa proud this season. It's going to be a great holiday season here over with Manscaped, our friends.
That's a great line. That's better than Jingle Balls to the Wall. It is.
You think so?
Yeah, definitely.
I would still break that out.
No, like, I mean, yeah, look, it's a catchy line, but the other one brings so much more imagery. to the table.
Yeah.
You know, you standing there, proud as punch, just showing Santa what you've done. You know, making him proud.
Yeah, make Santa proud with promo code PFF at manscaped.com. Indianapolis Colts at the Buffalo Bills. Old school AFC East matchup here. We got a little Jeff George. It's a Jeff George matchup.
Oh, yeah.
Jeff George, Jim Kelly. Jeff George now plays for the Buffalo Bills, according to you, your comp. I watch some, anyway, Buffalo's favored by 7. I do watch some old football games every now and again. I'm always attracted to old Broncos games, in addition to my Jaguars games. But watch the Broncos every now and again, and when you watch John Elway play football, there are more and more comparisons to the way Josh Allen plays.
Yeah.
Like I was watching, I think it was like a 1993 game the other day, and Elway's just sitting in the pocket, and just throws like a 40-yard laser beam for a touchdown. And that was Josh Allen last week against the Jets. And it was against the Jets, but 8 big-time throws from Josh Allen in that game. Precision down the field. Not precision Manscaped, but precision passing down the field from Allen. And a lot of times where it's just like, I'm waiting, and then just boom, laser beam. So 7 points, though, in this game for a Colts team that's been pretty good over these last few weeks. A little underwhelming last week against the Jags, but what are you looking for in this one?
Yeah, I think this is an interesting game and an interesting line because of a few things. One, we're starting to see that Colts offensive line. Now they got everybody back. And like it makes them a different team. Like when they have that 5 offensive line healthy, this is not the same Colts team it was earlier in the season. And they are able to run the ball at will. You know, you look at the holes they're opening up for Jonathan Taylor and him looking like a superstar. Buffalo's defense, I think, it's a really good unit this year, but they are not particularly strong up front. Like they will struggle to anchor against the kind of offensive line power that the Colts can bring to the table in the run game in particular. So if the Colts can actually run the ball consistently against Buffalo, Carson Wentz generally has been playing a pretty clean brand of football this year. Now, I know that sounds kind of ridiculous because you can think of the absurd, left-handed pitch to random people whilst he's in the grasp, or, the pick 6 out of the end zone, like ridiculous plays. But he only has 10 turnover-worthy plays on the
10.
year, and 7 of them came in those 2 games, right? The rainstorm in San Francisco and the next game against Tennessee. So outside of that, he's actually been playing a pretty mistake-free brand of football. Even with those 7 ridiculous turnover-worthy plays in there, his turnover-worthy play rate is by far the lowest of his career in this season. So if they have that dominant run game, the offensive line keeps him protected, and he doesn't, randomly implode with a 3 or 4 ridiculous play game, like that offense becomes, I think, an offense that Buffalo is going to struggle to deal with.
Yeah, and look, early in the season I said with Wentz, I'd want to see him attacking down the field a little bit more. That started to trend in the right direction prior to the Jags game. It was trending in the right direction when you saw him, again, outside the rainstorm with the river rain, against Houston, over 10 average depth of target. It was actually 13. It was only 20 dropbacks, or 20 throws, but Wentz attacking down the field. The Tennessee game, attack down the field. Yeah, you had some bad passes in there, some turnover-worthy plays, but I think that's going to be where the Colts are at their best. My concern with the Colts a little bit was the Jags pass rush really got to them last week. And as great as their offensive line is supposed to be, and they're finally back and healthy and the whole deal, they have not protected Wentz all that well. And if and when he's under pressure again against Buffalo, then what happens to those left-handed passes? That's what I'm looking for. What happens when Wentz throws the ball left-handed this week? Because sometimes it's an interception, sometimes it's a 2-yard gain on 3rd and 3 like it was last week. There's going to be another left-handed Wentz pass, and that might determine the outcome here of this game, because he just keeps doing it. He keeps trying to make
for that.
What's that?
You think there's a prop for that?
There should be
under
now.
On Wentz left-handed passes,
because he's
0.5.
doing it. He's doing it more than Mahomes right now. The Colts defense too has also just been an absolute roller coaster ride. And when we're also 1 week removed from talking about a Josh Allen blueprint, which was similar to the Patrick Mahomes one. And the Colts defense is the team that plays that bend but don't break, conservative type of style generally.
And just like the Raiders game last week, I don't know if that one game changed everything. like the Jets. The Buffalo Bills offense got right last week, but then they played the Jets, who can't stop anything, right? The Jets have given up like 1 million points this year. They've given up more points in 4 games than the Baltimore Ravens did in 2000, like the whole year. Their defense, like the Bills could have done anything they wanted on offense last week and it would have worked. So does that mean that everything that happened before in terms of teams starting to frustrate the Bills offense a little bit the way they were with the Chiefs goes out the window? Or does it mean you just don't see it because it was the Jets? So the Colts, I think, all right, their defense isn't great at all, but it's a lot better than the Jets. And I think they actually do have a chance of playing that style of defense to force Josh Allen back into that mode of, playing the boring conservative game. And again, my whole narrative on these guys is Josh Allen, Patrick Mahomes. Mahomes has admitted it. They just don't like playing the game that way. But at some point, you have to earn the right not to unless you're facing the Jets.
Yeah, you're a big throw the games out type of guy. Right? Chiefs and Bills both bounced back in games. Maybe do we throw out the Raiders game because you didn't have the same test? Do you throw out the Jets game because they've given up 40 points a game over the last 4 weeks?
I don't think you throw them out, but I think those are not instructive for how specific other games going to go. Right? You don't even if it was 100% true that, hey, if you play let's say you play an old school Tampa 2 type of defense, that's how you shut down this offense, and then you face the Jets and they put up like 1 million points, that wouldn't be any indication that was no longer true.
Right.
It would just be they face the Jets, who don't do that and are terrible. So the same with the Raiders one, I think gets more complicated because I think there's a real chance that the Chiefs offense was one of their biggest issues was like a lack of confidence at that point. And I think there's definitely a non-zero chance that simply having a game like that removes that part of the equation. So even if the next team puts them in the same bind that the Giants or whoever were doing before, I'm not sure it has the same effect because I think the Chiefs are in a different headspace than they were when that was happening. But for the Bills, I don't think that's the same. I don't think the same thing was at work. I don't think the Bills' offense was like low on confidence when this was happening. I think they were just starting to be frustrated by these coverage shells they were looking at, and the Jets just didn't put them in that spot.
Yeah, that's why I think the Colts have the pieces to at least slow down the Bills' offense a little bit here. 9th worst coverage grade. That's not great. They've been picked apart a little bit, but the pass rush, the 9th best in Indianapolis. DeForest Buckner on the interior, take advantage of those Bills guards. All of those opportunities are on the table for the Colts to at least keep it close. I think at some point too, if the Colts they're 5-5, they are. Again, I keep pointing back to that Ravens game, man. They could be 6-4 and very much in the thick of everything. But the Colts have a chance to get back on track. It's a huge game for them, for their season, and I think it's on Carson Wentz to start making a few more plays down the field. If you talk about the turnover-worthy plays being down, but Carson Wentz is also low on his big-time throw rate this year. And that's, I think, the benefit of having a Carson Wentz is the ability to create those big throws down the field. He is capable of it, and to me, that's Indianapolis needs a lot of that stuff to go right. Wentz making big plays, Darius Leonard, peanut punching balls out again, and like he's been doing, forcing fumbles. I don't know if the Colts have it in them, but 7 does feel like a lot. I think the Colts will at least keep this one closer. So I'm going to lean Colts to cover the 7 here. Where are you going?
Same.
All
Again, worth noting that Greenline disagrees with us.
Well, go listen to Greenline if you're actually doing stuff. And listen to us about X-Chair, new PFF NFL podcast sponsor. Working from home is more important now than ever, and you can optimize your home office with an X-Chair and our many accessories to enhance your focus, productivity, energy, and comfort once you feel the customized support of X-Chair's patented dynamic variable lumbar. That's the DVL. There's no going back. I'm nailing these things too.
It's beautiful. It's beautiful.
It's a great show so far. Don't mess with it. No. You don't talk about no-hitters when you're in the midst of it. It's all in the LMX massage and temperature regulation, exclusively designed and made for X-Chair. With versatile comfort and extraordinary design, X-Chair fits any space. Plus, even Steve can put it together with his own 2 hands and the tools that they gave me. High performance, quality engineering, extreme comfort. These are all the reasons I love my X-Chair. Actually, I do love it. It's got the massage features, great, the heating and the cooling. I got all those features. I got the headrest, like I said, for the naps the other day. And even when I'm not working, I still like to sit in my X-Chair because it's comfortable. So take my advice. Try the X-Chair for yourself, risk-free for 30 days. You go to xchairnflpod.com. That's the letter X, chair, NFLPOD.com. Or call 1-844-4XChair for $100 off your order. $100 off. XChair has a 30-day guarantee of complete comfort, and you can finance your purchase for as little as $30 a month. It's xchairnflpod.com. And if you're watching on YouTube, check out the link in the description. XChair. That's what Austin does.
Nice.
Like this.
Yeah,
Is that why they like it?
Beautiful.
XChair.
Yeah. They'll love that.
He's going to be like their
Hype man?
spokesperson.
It's he's going to be the Jesse Cofield of XChair.
Jesse Cofield of DraftKings.com.
It's hype. It's super customizable as well. Like at home, our office is all white, so we actually have a white one.
There's a lot of different colors.
Yeah,
you got a white one, huh? I didn't know that.
Right, and saying different colors, different materials and stuff. People were asking why we're not sitting in X chairs right here, and the reason is because this table is like 9 feet in the air, and we have to be in like giant bar stools. So,
yeah.
If we were sitting in the X chairs, this would look a little bit worse. We have to ramp up the chair.
I don't know if it goes that high.
No.
Yeah. We should try. We should see if we can, though. I would much rather be sitting in an X chair than this thing for
We would need
2.5 hours.
I think we would need some form of giant box to place it on in order for this table to work. We could just, Austin has his upstairs. We could just steal
does he?
his, bring it down and see.
We should. What color is his?
Black it.
You got a black one?
Yeah.
I got black too. So we use it for the daily. I use mine for the daily.
That's
at
true.
least. Yeah. Anyway, xchairnflpod.com. Arizona Cardinals at the Seattle Seahawks. It's still a game of the week. It's still one of the best games. It's a division game, and Russ is another week healed from mallet finger. The Cardinals are favored by 2.5, but don't sleep on Seattle. Don't look at just their record in Seattle. You got the 12s there. They like to be loud. The 12s. What are you looking for in this one? They like being called the 12s.
They do?
They do.
Okay.
Yeah. They're the 12th man. The big battle with Texas A&M. Who's the real 12th man? Well, they both like to claim it.
Okay.
What?
Nothing.
Just speaking to our Seattle fans here.
Beautiful. Yeah, well, what does Russell Wilson look like this week?
I don't know.
Another week removed from the mallet finger, another week of healing for one of the 3 greatest healers of all time. In theory, that should put him quite a way down the road, right? If he was well enough to play last week, but obviously still hampered by the mallet finger, a week of healing for a guy that prolific should be 100% now, right?
And if he is 100%,
then we've got a game.
Yeah.
If he isn't, they're boned.
They are. I got asked the question today. What's wrong with Seattle? And
is that not Russell Wilson lost his finger? The end.
So they're 3-6, and obviously part of it is Russell Wilson's been hurt and missed football games, but the other part of it is the rest of the roster has just been depleted in recent years, and they rely on Russ to be great. And this is on mute, man. It should be muted. What's happening? This isn't even Harry's fault. That's a Spam Risk is calling me.
It's a you fault.
Spam Risk calling me all throughout the day. The Seattle roster has just gotten worse and worse. And remember, let's go back to the offseason, right? You're coming out of the offseason, and it's like, man, Seattle could really use some upgrades on the offensive line, and the cornerback room is a little up, not great, and they could use some pass rushers. And then you get to the draft, and they've got 3 draft picks. The first one's in the second round. That was all the investment that they made in Jamal Adams and Carlos Dunlap and just veterans for picks. Maybe we should be talking about Seattle's strategy instead of the Rams' strategy, because it's similar, except the Rams still end up finding a way to get draft picks. So I think Seattle's roster has just gotten into a rough spot. You talk about the offensive line, it's still a bottom 10 unit. Dwayne Brown regressing a little bit here in his age 36 season. Don't we all regress in our age 36 season, Sam?
No, my 36 was good.
You were good at 36?
Yeah.
All right. Well, Dwayne Brown just can't hang with you, apparently.
No, it's true.
But an elite Russ solves a lot.
Yeah.
Elite Russ plus DK Metcalf plus Tyler Lockett, and all those pieces are still available for the Seahawks.
Yeah, look, it's not rocket science. Like, Russell Wilson is one of the best players in the NFL. He is a player for whom his entire team depends on him. If he's not there, of course the Seahawks are way worse. Even before he got injured, we were asking the question of, is this the year where even Russ is not capable of dragging this Seahawks team to the playoffs? Maybe they don't even make it with Russ. Now, they might make it even having lost a few games of Russ, such as the state of the NFC and the 6 and 7 seed and those kinds of things. But, of course, they're going to look dramatically worse if he's not there and if he's not 100% healthy. Neither of those things have been true, or at least one of those things hasn't been true in the last few weeks. So the question is, like, how is he going to look this time around? Because clearly he wasn't ready last week. They got 0 points. He had the worst game probably of his career. I haven't checked where that grade ranks, but
it has to be.
It was pretty terrible.
It was in the 30s.
Right. And it was only worse, like at the end of the game when he was just trying to do anything to put up some points. So they need him. Like, they need him back. Otherwise, I mean, I don't know how you gauge like what the issue is. Obviously, he's not 100% healthy coming back from this finger thing, right? But he's been cleared to play. So what is the actual problem? Is it you just need to get used to playing again, like the mental the mental practice game you were running on your own pre-game every week didn't actually do anything?
He was ready. I mean, that part never should have gotten worse. He'd played as many games as Geno Smith.
That's what I'm saying. So was that maybe
Mentally.
Turns out that isn't actually a thing, or is he actually physically more encumbered than we thought he was? Like, because if he plays like that again, you're actually better off starting Geno Smith. Genuinely.
If he plays like that, yeah. I mean, Geno Smith didn't put up grades in the 30s.
Right.
Or a 29 passing grade. With Russ, I think a lot of it was physical. An adjusted completion percentage of 60, an actual completion percentage of 50, 4 yards per attempt. That, 3 drops in there too. But the actual throws weren't great. The decision making wasn't great. So that's more of your mental part. Like when you're trying to force passes and 3 turnover-worthy plays. He didn't have a turnover-worthy play coming into the game.
Right.
So clearly there was rust or the finger or whatever. He had been playing pretty good football. But even when he was there for the first 5 weeks of the season, we said it was another year where it was big play heavy. And the new Shane Waldron offense was supposed to take a little bit of that pressure off, open up some of the intermediate routes, that 10 to 19-yard level where Russ now is graded like 21st in the NFL. You're supposed to own that if you're Russell Wilson, if you're an elite quarterback. You're supposed to own that area. That's where Kyler Murray has taken his big strides, as I always reference. So that is where I think this offense needs to figure it out. It's been a lot of like, here's some underneath stuff, put Gerald Everett in space, use DK Metcalf a little bit differently so that there's more underneath stuff. There's more of the downfield stuff that Russ excels at. Where's that intermediate level of the field? So the same thing I've been saying about the Cardinals these last couple of years. That's what they need to figure out. Plus, Wilson's average time to throw, 3.5 seconds last year. That's up in last week. That's Justin Fields' preseason territory. That's an eternity that means nothing is coming out of his hand in rhythm or on time. And that's not just a Russell Wilson thing. That is an everybody thing. That's the receivers. That's the scheme. Seattle has to figure that out. And for the second straight week, I would say if there's an advantage, it's DK and Lockett against these corners for the Cardinals. So they have to attack there. They didn't do it well enough against Green Bay.
And then for Arizona, we still don't know if Kyler Murray is going to be back at 100%.
He's close, is what they're saying, right?
But this is like, the problem is it's like the boy that cried wolf, right? When you start off with an injury that was never really supposed to be a problem, and then all of a sudden we're a couple of weeks later and you're still like, he's right there. Like, we're day to day.
He's high ankle too, right?
Was it high ankle?
I thought it was high ankle. So that's when it turns in instead of out. And most high ankles, in my years as a fan and not a doctor, I mean, those things are like at least 3 or 4 weeks for the most part. That's why we talked about Cordero Patterson having that, right?
Are you sure that's true?
Yeah, that's all true.
That the high ankle thing is when you turn your leg
when it turns in? Yeah. It's in instead of out.
Okay.
Ask your dad.
I'm not 100% sure that's true.
What's a high? Well, Google it.
As far as I'm aware, high ankle is not the direction in which your ankle changes, but it's when you roll your ankle and it doesn't like torque those ligaments, but it travels further up the leg. And
it's
you
just
end up,
higher?
Yeah.
Go ahead, talk. I'm reading.
Do your own research is what they tell you. Steve's right there Googling it. Anyway, if Kyler Murray isn't back in 100%, obviously the Arizona offense is dramatically different as well. I don't think they're quite as dependent on Kyler as the Seahawks are with Russ. Like, they can get by with the run game with Colt McCoy, a quarterback, even if they can't dig out of a hole like last week.
I can't tell.
But if Kyler Murray and DeAndre Hopkins aren't back in this offense, it is a completely different proposition.
I can't tell. I could be wrong.
No?
But either way,
Okay.
high ankles usually take a few weeks. I know I'm right about that.
Well, that's true, yes.
We have two weeks of evidence with Colt McCoy under center. One was a really nice game against the San Francisco 49ers last week. Not so good against the Carolina Panthers. Panthers are number 2 in EPA per play allowed defensively against the pass. So perhaps a big part of why the Cardinals struggled last week. But when Colt was good a couple weeks ago, it was all the short stuff, underneath game. Seattle can be picked apart underneath. I thought they did a really nice job defensively, though, last week against the Packers. I will say, for whatever it's worth, for the second straight year, Seattle's defense starting to come together a little bit. You know, they're not the best at anything, but they're getting a little bit better these last couple weeks against the Jags and against Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. Will they continue that trend against Arizona?
Doing my own research, the Orthopedic Associates of St. Augustine, who I assume are legit, but have no possible evidence to suggest that
it's
either
on the
way.
internet. It's got to be true.
That's what I'm saying. They say I'm right and you're wrong. A high ankle sprain is...
It's just
high ankle sprains get their name from occurring above the ankle joint itself and generally require a longer rehabilitation period to fully recover compared with a low ankle injury, but it is not to do with which direction your ankle turns.
Maybe you can get a high ankle when you turn.
Oh, sure you can, but that's not how it... That's not why it's a high ankle sprain.
That's what I'm saying. That's exactly what I was saying. Either way, in my expert opinion, Kyler Murray's a maybe. I got him questionable for this week.
Yeah.
So if Kyler, let's make 2 picks here. Wit or without. like we're in any Philly fans here when we went on the training camp tour. You got to order wit or without.
Yeah.
Wit or without. Kyler Murray. What's your pick? Wit. Kyler Murray in the game for the Cardinals and or DeAndre Hopkins.
With Kyler Murray, they win but don't cover.
Cardinals win, don't cover.
Yeah. Without Kyler Murray, they don't win.
Line changes without.
Well, that's true.
I assume. I'm going to go with or without. It's Seattle. With or without.
With or without.
Seattle. So you're going to go Arizona with. And I'll go Seattle no matter what.
Yeah. But they're not covering, even with.
They're not covering,
Correct.
No matter what. Okay. So you're really taking Seattle.
Huh? It's a 2.5 point spread for Arizona. So with Kyler Murray, they win the game but don't cover.
Right, so you're taking Seattle to cover no matter what.
Yes.
Okay.
But not to win necessarily.
Okay. Because we're just going against the spread here. Yeah, I just think I don't want to overreact to Russ's first game back and on the road against a Green Bay defense that's starting to come together.
Mm-hmm.
I think there could be some good value here in Seattle.
Plus a week of all-time great healing.
Plus healing.
I mean,
plus the healing. Another potential game of the week.
That's enough time for him to regrow a whole finger.
Actually, before we get into the game of the week, more opportunities to win. Football fans, you ready to score some free bets? Well, now you can bet on any NFL game this week with DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. New customers who bet just $1 on either team to score, they can win $100 in free bets. When a team scores, you score. If Sportsbook isn't yet available in your state, DraftKings won't leave you empty-handed. Everyone can play for huge cash prizes all season long with DraftKings daily fantasy sports contests. And DraftKings is giving all new customers a free shot at millions of dollars in total prizes with their first deposit. Think Jesse's got the same read on TV this week too? We're talking about the same stuff?
Maybe.
She's probably pushing the same promo. Maybe not the same promo code because ours is PFF. Download the DraftKings Sportsbook app now. Use that promo code PFF. Bet $1 on either team to score and win $100 in free bets. If they score, you score with promo code PFF this week at DraftKings Sportsbook, an official sports betting partner of the NFL. Of course, you must be 21 or older. New Jersey, Indiana, and Pennsylvania only. New customers only. Minimum $5 deposit, $1 wager required, one per customer. Restrictions apply. See DraftKings.com/sportsbook for details. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Think Eric's called that number at all?
No.
Eric's not calling that number.
No.
Maybe he works on the hotline on the side.
You think?
He's like, you got a gambling problem? Go to PFF Elite. That's what he's telling people. But 1-800-GAMBLER if you have a gambling problem. Let's go Green Bay Packers at the Minnesota Vikings. Packers also favored on the road by 2.5, much like the Cardinals are.
Yeah.
Minnesota gets the Packers, once a year? At least last year they did.
What?
They get the Packers, they beat them?
Beat them?
Yes.
Okay.
Get to them. Get them. Once a year. They're going to get them?
I mean, sometimes. It's a weird game because all of a sudden, usually the focus is on Aaron Rodgers versus Mike Zimmer's defense. It almost feels like it's the opposite this game. Like all of a sudden the focus is Green Bay's defense, which is suddenly putting up like record-setting numbers, and Minnesota's offense, which when they just like cut loose and say, you know what, Justin Jefferson's amazing, let's fire the ball his way a lot, is really good. And Kirk Cousins has dragged himself up to number 2 in passing grade, number 1 overall on the season, I think. Like this is a fascinating matchup on this side of the ball.
It is. And Mike Renner, our own Mike Renner, said, hey, the Packers safeties, Adrian Amos, Darnell Savage, the best duo. They are the best duo in the league, even though the grades don't say that. I understand what he's saying. Amos is awesome, and he's always been pretty awesome. Made a ton of plays last week. But the way Green Bay's playing, which is the Staley tree, relies on those safeties, relies on disguise, and even though on paper it shouldn't make sense, right, that Jair Alexander's out and he's their star and they've been relying on Rasul Douglas and rookie Eric Stokes and Kevin King, Green Bay's still making it work. They got the number 5 coverage grade. So that side of the ball will be fascinating to watch. And I think Green Bay is trending in the right direction defensively. And I'm wondering, Sam, the Rams started slow last year too. Remember, the Rams ended up with the best defense in the league last year when it came to just making life difficult for opposing passing offenses. The Packers aren't necessarily there yet from a grading standpoint. Again, they started slow, but are they moving in that right direction over these last couple of weeks? They've got that ability.
They're also a team that, more than most in the NFL, they actually have some like real reinforcements on the way, on the horizon. You know what I mean? Like they have been without Jair Alexander for most of the season, and he is arguably the best cornerback in the NFL. They are optimistic that at some point he's going to come back. They have been without Zadarius Smith, who's their best pass rusher for most of the season. Again, at some point, they are hopeful that he can return late in the season. They've been without David Bakhtiari on the offensive line, arguably the best left tackle in the NFL. Like you're talking about 3 of the best players in the NFL at their respective positions, and definitely the best players at their respective position on the team, all legitimately expected to return at some point for a team that expects to make the postseason. It's not going to help in this game, but down the road, like the Packers can actually really anticipate like a late season boost, unlike a lot of other teams.
Similar question that I asked earlier in the season about the Chiefs and Mahomes. The Chiefs were still putting up points. They had the turnovers, but they were putting up points early in the year despite Patrick Mahomes not playing his best football, despite his PFF grade being a little bit lower. Aaron Rodgers currently 16th in PFF grade. Now, last week dragged him down a little bit, a 47 grade. That's very un-Rodgers-like because, he was rusty because, he came back on Saturday. He was officially back on Saturday. Didn't get to practice at all.
But he'd been doing isolated yoga.
Yeah, he was
all week.
He recovered from COVID quickly, and he worked out, and he did all that stuff. But he didn't get to practice football. So it's his second PFF passing grade of 44. 44 week 1, 44 in week 10. Now, you could chalk up week 1, of course, to Jeopardy. It was an offseason of Jeopardy, right? He was so focused on answers and questions that he had a bad week 1. And then week 10 was the rust and coming off of COVID and all that stuff. So are either of those, is the overall body of work from Rodgers concerning? Because the overall body of work is far lower than where he was last year, where he was one of the best of all time. But it's also even lower than his down years of 2019 or 2017 or whatever it is. Any concerns with Rodgers here, or is it a reason for optimism that Green Bay's 8-2 despite not having the best Aaron Rodgers?
Yeah, I think it's more optimistic than it is a potential concern for them going forward. Like Rodgers hasn't been playing at his best for most of the year, but we know that capability is still there. We've seen games where he's been fantastic. So if you're at Green Bay, the fact that you haven't needed to lean on him as much and are still cooking, I think is great. The fact that you can get those 3 players back later in the year is great. And then if Rodgers ever does catch fire, you're going to be a really hard team to beat.
I think we might be. Are we looking at a low-scoring game here? Because Minnesota, again, their defense is trending in the right direction as well. They've done some nice things just against third down. It's more Zimmer-esque, right? So they've been pretty good. Green Bay's defense has been pretty good. Are we talking about a defensive battle here, or does it get into that shootout territory like they've had? They've had a few of those shootout types of games over these last couple weeks. It's going to be a really good one. It's in the Dome. But where are you leaning on this one? besides the Packers? Because you always pick, I know how you pick.
Do you?
You taking Minnesota this week? You're going to do it. Home dog Vikings. Do it.
No. And this time Green Line backs me up. Green Line thinks that Green Bay is worth significantly more.
Eric's writing the algorithms there.
Significantly more than the line. I think it's a really interesting battle. My problem is I don't trust the Vikings coaching enough to play to their own strengths. Like the Vikings, if they just cut loose and said, this is our offense, air it out, would be a much more frightening team to opposing defenses than the one that usually shows up. And they usually don't do that unless they're kind of backed into a corner or forced to do it because they didn't do it the week before. So the fact that they did it last week almost says to me that they're going to back off again and just go back to this, like, here's the more in control, lower aggression style of offense, and then only when they're down like 10 points are they going to kick into gear again and actually start racking up some yards. So, Green Bay win.
So you're taking Green Bay?
Yeah.
I'll go Vikings. I hate going against Green Line as much as I have, but we're playing the feels here sometimes because it's the PFF NFL podcast, and we could do that. It's our show. Green Bay for Sam to win and cover the 2.5.
Looks like people are betting it towards Minnesota. It was out at 2.5, and
they feel trendy because when you look at high level, there are a couple late weird late game stuff away from a much better record. Whether it's Bengals in overtime, it's missed field goal against the Cardinals. They're really close again for whatever that's worth. And sometimes Bill Parcells said you are what your record is, but sometimes your record could have easily been something else. and that stuff matters when you're looking forward, maybe not backwards. So give me Minnesota. Let's pull the upset here this week, division matchup. Hometown Cincinnati Bengals travel into Vegas. The man in Vegas who sets spreads and lines has the Bengals favored by 1, coming off of their bye and coming off of back-to-back losses against the New York Jets and the Cleveland Browns. So the man in Vegas is not overreacting maybe to the Bengals, but is he overreacting to the Raiders getting crushed by the Chiefs last week? Would this be the line a week ago? I don't think so.
No, but new information has come to light.
New information has come to light, yeah.
I think the Raiders are now on both teams are kind of on a bit of a skid at this point. Like neither of them have played well in a while. The Raiders, I think it's one of those things where like one game you can kind of throw out or ignore or park to the side for a while. When it happens two games in a row, you're like, oh, okay, now we need to start thinking about this. The Raiders offense was kind of throttled by the Chiefs defense. Like that, whatever, all the talk obviously is about the fact that their defense rolled in there with this game plan that didn't have any correlation to how everybody else has been slowing down the Chiefs this year and got gashed because of it. But like, the flip side of that is, by the way, Kansas City's our defense absolutely murdered the Raiders offense. Like they didn't get anything going. And Deshaun Jackson is now there to be their deep threat and try and add that back into the offense, but it hasn't happened yet. And then the Bengals, like their defense has really fallen off as the year's gone on. Their offense, I think, was only really like the Jets game was fine for the offense. The Browns game was the one that would concern you. So from their point of view, I think we're only one game into their offensive struggles. And that game felt weird in terms of like fluky, basically every way that Jamar Chase could find to screw up a pass and heading in his direction happened in that game. And that was sort of the inevitable flip side of the opposite being true for most of the season. Like any time the ball went in his direction, somehow it was a good thing. The truth is probably somewhere in the middle, which still skews towards one of the best playmakers in the NFL.
The Bengals have been like the get right spot though for offenses.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like their defense has really fallen off.
Yeah, and so
it's a couple of get right spots on defense.
Like the Bengals defense has handedly been responsible for just like narratives around the NFL. The Mike White narrative.
They fixed the Browns alone like 3 times in the last 12 months.
Yeah, right. I mean, so they were the reason why Mike White completed like 85% of his passes.
Mike White has a jersey in the Hall of Fame.
Because because of the Bengals.
And now we're like a week later, and they're like, sit down. Joe Flacco's taking this one.
Yeah. Now Mike White has fallen so far from his perch that they're like, oh no, the Dolphins blitz. We can't put Mike out.
Do
there.
they like the Hall of Fame when that happens, right? And you have this like nice.
What did he go there for? Oh, just for 400 yards in his first start.
Yeah. So like, what happens to all of that crap, right? Because in like a year's time, nobody's even going to know who Mike White is. You can't have that on display next to like Dick Butkus and Mean Joe Green, right? Do they just have this like warehouse under the building that's just stocked full of this crap that like for about a week and a half?
They just keep expanding. They have hallways for like
obscure
stats.
But that's my
stuff.
point. Like, there's no way that remains on display for longer than like 4 weeks because nobody is going to know who Mike White is
Let's go up to
in a
Canton
year's
and see.
time.
Let's go up to Canton. I want to go pay my
So,
respects to Mike White.
They must have this like labyrinthine basement that's just stuffed full of this crap, right? Like players that for like a month's time were flavor of the month, and now nobody even remembers who they are. Like there's a Peyton Hillis wing under the basement somewhere in the Hall of Fame of like, remember his ridiculous face mask thing with the like weird looking like hoop on it,
Yeah.
Peyton Hillis's face mask, the Madden cover, his boots from whatever game. He had an incredible run. And now you can't have that on display. It's like, who the hell is Peyton Hillis?
They have all of these displays, I assume.
There's no way that's on display.
You just keep building new wings. They get the Mike White wing.
The Mike White wing.
Yeah.
No. That place isn't big enough for that. Have you seen the size of that place?
No. We should drive up. We should go up to Canton sometime. Is it open again? Let's go. Anyway, the Bengals put Mike White in the Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
They gave us the further push the Baker's better without OBJ narrative. Look, they just scored 1 million points, and Baker had the highest grade this week. And now you saw Mike White horrible last week.
Yep.
And Baker horrible last week. And it could be a get-right game for the Raiders at home in the Dome. So I like the Raiders in this one.
I mean, it's a game where if they can't get right, it's time to start seriously writing off the season for them.
I'm wondering, coming out of the bye here with Cincinnati, they've been Jamar Chase heavy, right?
Yeah.
But it's not like they don't have other pieces. They've got the great C.J. Uzomah. They've got
The great.
T. Higgins. They have Tyler Boyd. They have other options too. It should be, and Joe Mixon has run the ball really well this year too, and Chris Evans out of the backfield. I mean, they have well-rounded pieces in Cincinnati. Have they found a way to integrate all of that? And then, oh, by the way, when we need Jamar Chase to be special, let him be special. But it can't just be we're only going to create offense when he creates a 50-yard explosive play. It's got to be more consistent for the Bengals.
Yeah, it is an interesting check on how they were doing things. This offense was riding high based off every time we throw it in Jamar Chase's direction, something good happens. Like even against the Bengals, right? Or against the Ravens, rather. The Ravens were blitzing Joe Burrow, and Joe Burrow was basically just when in doubt, find Jamar Chase, and then he skittles a couple of defenders and takes it for 50 yards, and it's a touchdown. Like that's not normal. I mean, that's not the way that's supposed to go. Last week was the complete come down of that, and we saw the whole thing spiral out of control. It is interesting to see, okay, is that an opportunity for them to adjust how they are spreading the ball around on offense and not just relying so much on Jamar Chase? Because that's probably something that needed to happen at some point, and this was an excuse to do it. But it's not even, when you look at Jamar Chase leads the team with 70 targets, right? But T. Higgins is next with 57. It's not that big a discrepancy. It's just that the production is
it's not the distribution, it's the production, right? I mean, it really is that. And it's not like a bad thing that Jamar Chase creates explosive plays and all that stuff. You need more from the other one.
But their top three receivers each have 50 targets. Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and Tyler Boyd.
All right, let's the other part, Max Crosby, who we mentioned, 13 pressures the other night, going up against Riley Reif for the most part here. Riley Reif, the epitome of the league average tackle.
And Riley Reif ranks amongst the best players that Max Crosby has gone up against this season.
Yeah, and I think Max Crosby
with his 70 grade.
It's time to start really respecting what Max Crosby's doing. On pace to what said is the pressure record by J.J. Watt.
He's on pace to tie, I think, J.J. Watt's pressure record, obviously with an extra game. So 119, which is nuts. 4 players or 3 players have topped 100 since we've been doing this.
Yeah.
So 16 years worth. J.J. Watt at 119 is mental. Like, that's a ridiculous number. And Max Crosby is now on pace to tie that with a 17th game.
So, do you like Vegas in this one as well?
Yes.
We sleeping on our hometown Bengals here?
No, because their defense has been bad recently, and their offense was kind of held in check by a decent Browns team.
All right, New Orleans Saints at the Philadelphia Eagles. Eagles favored by 2 against the Saints. What are you looking for in this one?
This is an interesting game.
Yes.
The Eagles have stumbled into this game plan, which is, hey, if we actually run the ball with our really good offensive line and the threat of Jalen Hurts, have you noticed that everything gets easier? Like, A, the running backs have production because it turns out we're good at that. B, Jalen Hurts isn't doing everything by himself. And C, the deep shots to Devontae Smith and Quez Watkins become easier because everybody's actually focused on other things. Does that still work against a team like New Orleans, who have a really good defensive front and can actually potentially take a sledgehammer to that run game and force them somewhere else? And if they do force them somewhere else, do we just go back to this like Jalen Hurts or nothing offense?
Yeah, Saints with the number 1 run defense, Graham. I mean, that is what they do, what they're doing well. So yeah, it's definitely a strength against strength. I expect the Eagles to continue what they're trying to do. They played a tight game last year with Taysom Hill under center for the Saints. The other part of this is the last 2 weeks for the Saints. I think the passing grades have been good for Trevor Siemian. I think you're starting to see the lack of receiving depth catch up for the Saints, where you're not getting those explosive plays. You're getting generally good quarterback play from Siemian. He wasn't as good. He wasn't good in relief against the Bucs, really, throw for throw, because he got away with the end zone interception that didn't count or whatever. But he's thrown the ball well the last couple of weeks. But the receiving depth is coming back to bite the Saints, and it's going to be a tough game. They're coming off their 2 best run defense. They shut down Tennessee in the non-Derrick Henry offense. They are stout up front in New Orleans, so I love that battle. And I think it'll be close. I assume I'm expecting another close game. The Saints have lost by 2 each of the last 2 weeks. So they're 5-4. They're that close to being, 7-2. But I just wonder if they're running out of time here. And the bad parts of the roster are starting to catch up to the Saints here.
Yeah, and their offensive line is really crumbling as well. Like, they've had the 2 of the best tackles in the NFL for a number of years. The interior has become kind of eroded. The tackles are getting injured as well, or like Armstead is getting injured. So all of a sudden, like, what was this great offensive line, one of the best platforms for any quarterback to work from, hasn't been for a while. And like, Philadelphia's defensive front might not be quite what it used to be, but it's still good enough to take advantage of weaknesses inside. And by the way, that, like, the fact that offensive line is sort of falling apart a little bit is another mark in the Sean Payton Coach of the Year kind of tally, right? Not just what he's doing with Trevor Siemian, but the fact that he's doing it without an offensive line that you would say is like top 3 in the NFL. Like, that unit has not been what it was supposed to be, and he's still getting it done.
The one part that I might like for the Saints, though, we always talk about the Eagles' defense letting the underneath completions and all that stuff. So that is generally where the Sean Payton offense excels, right? So you could have another pretty good game from Trevor Siemian distributing the ball. Eagles deep passing watch, still only allowed 9 completions, tied for second fewest in the NFL behind the Bills. So I think you're going to see the underneath stuff available for the Saints. And, maybe I am leaning towards Sean Payton getting back in that Coach of the Year discussion, which we did discuss on the PFF NFL Daily today. Some debate on the Coach of the Year stuff and who should be the guy so far this season. So I don't love the way the Saints are trending these last couple weeks, but I think their strength against the Eagles' strength, their run defense strength against what the Eagles are trying to do, I think the Saints will take them out of their game plan. So give me the Saints in this one, especially with the Eagles favored by 2, man. That's surprising to me.
Yeah,
People have soured on the Saints. And it's still Trevor Siemian at quarterback, too. So at one point, when does he become the Trevor Siemian? As you mentioned, those back-to-back passing grades, we have never seen that in Trevor Siemian's career.
Yeah, I don't like the idea of what happens if New Orleans is able to shut down that Philadelphia run game. I think that offense goes to pieces a little bit if that happens, and I think there's a pretty good chance of that happening. So, yeah, I'm with you, New Orleans.
We're both taking the Saints here, even though Philly's trending. They're trending, man. Steve and Sam both taking the Saints. We agree on the last two.
The money is all going in on Philly, though. 63% of the money.
People are buying in. What are their playoff? I was trying to pull up their playoff odds. Do you have those handy?
Nope. Based off PFF Green Line.
Where are the power rankings here? Where's Philly? They have a 21% chance to make the playoffs. So they are still in the hunt, Sam.
In the hunt, along with everybody else in the NFC.
Along with everyone else besides the Lions. But if they win this, certainly goes a long way. So we'll both take New Orleans getting the 2 points here. Baltimore Ravens at the Chicago Bears. Ravens coming off a bye. They're favored by 4.5. I'm sorry, not coming off a bye. They're coming off the Thursday night game. Last time we saw the Ravens cover 2. Oh, no, it's cover 2. What do? We cover 0. The zero blitz that the Dolphins threw at the Baltimore Ravens with no answers. Wonder if they practiced that a little bit this week. But what are you looking for in this particular game?
Yeah, so this is like it's another version of that. Like, there's the blueprint, but it's not what you do. So what do you do with that? The Miami Dolphins, I think, genuinely showed people a game plan to stop Baltimore's offense. But not every team in the NFL is equipped to do that, right? The only way you can only zero blitz with both your safeties like every play if you're comfortable with the guys you therefore have locked up one-on-one in coverage behind them, right?
Yep.
And Miami have thrown an absolute boatload of money and resources at those guys in the last couple of years. So, frankly, nobody in the league should be more comfortable with those guys holding up one-on-one and doing that. Now, you still have to do it. You still have to trust them to do that. But, it works for them in a way it probably doesn't work for a lot of other teams. Chicago is not a team that likes to blitz. They're pretty low in general blitz rate. They're pretty low in defensive back blitz rate. So, I would think it's very unlikely that they try and emulate that game plan. Now, that puts them in the situation that we were sort of anticipating Miami, which is generally blitzing is still a thing that impacts Lamar Jackson and the Baltimore Ravens. But if you don't do it the way the Dolphins did, you do expose yourself to that, he's gone 40 yards. 3rd and 10, Lamar's just going to pick up 30 and you're screwed. And it still might be a net win over the course of the game, but those plays are backbreaking and demoralizing, and it might take you out of the game plan completely. So do Chicago still try and blitz him and still try and get aggressive, or do they just go, look, this is our defense. We're going to play how we play and hope that's good enough?
It felt like the Dolphins were blitzing like that in part, but they weren't blitzing just to get the ball out of Lamar's hands or to make him make quick decisions. It was also to take away those escape lanes that you're talking about, because theoretically, if you blitz,
that was the biggest part,
right?
Of it.
And the biggest part was the discipline with which they said, okay, who was breaking that down recently? That there's 6 gaps, right? There's 6 escape lanes, and if you rush 4, 2 of them are open.
Yeah, so they just added 2 guys and took away all of the lanes.
So you take away every lane and just make sure you play disciplined. And now all you're saying is, okay, win from the pocket and win from the pocket quickly. So you got to make quick decisions, get rid of the ball, throw the ball accurately, and have answers to it schematically. The Ravens were off on all of those things. So that's kind of like the benefit to it. So it isn't a game plan that you can just draw up every single week. The other part for the Bears, Khalil Mack's still banged up. Eddie
and it's
Jackson's
a hyper-aggressive one. Even if you are going to do that, you need to have real confidence in what you're doing to say, yes, we are going to have this tightrope, high-wire act of a defense because we think that's the best way of doing it. But when it goes wrong, it's going to go wrong to the tune of an 80-yard touchdown.
They didn't even change their defensive look. Their pre-snap look, the Dolphins, was 7 guys, within 2 yards of the line of scrimmage, and then just 4 across up top. It looked like the 4 across up top looked like your 3rd and 13 defense, right, where everybody just kind of sits at the sticks and say, okay, nothing at the sticks here, right? Don't let anything behind you. That's what it looked like pre-snap every single time, especially on 3rd down. So yeah, I don't think we necessarily see that from the Bears. Now, on the other side, we might see the Ravens do that to Justin Fields and the Bears.
Yeah.
And it's the same thing, right? We're bringing the zero blitz, which we love to do. We're bringing a ton of blitzes. That's where Fields and the Bears have really struggled this year. That's where Fields was having a lot of his issues early in the season, And let's see if has he truly turned a corner like we saw in the Pittsburgh game on Monday Night Football, or is pass protection and setting protections and knowing where you're unblocked and your hots are, is that still an issue for the Bears?
Fields has got some really interesting splits now this year. He's got a passing grade or an overall grade of 83.3 when he's kept clean. That's pretty good. The grade under pressure is 34.5. Not blitzed, it's a grade of 70. When he's blitzed, it's a grade of 54. So his performance has been night and day when it comes to dealing with pressure. Now, somebody at some point, and I forget who this was, so apologies, was asking, like, how much are his numbers when it comes to pressure and time in the pocket and all those kinds of things? Like, how much are they determined essentially entirely by that game against the Browns? Because that was such a disaster, such a train wreck that can that out, like, legitimately skew numbers in that direction. So, if we take that out, let's see what happens. You're going to need to talk for a minute because this was a longer process to get around to that.
Oh, I was expecting you to have the answers.
I was trying to get there, but it was convoluted to maneuver my way around there.
Ravens are favored by 4.5. Road game against the Bears. I don't completely know what to make of the Bears. There's a lot of confusing things. It's starting with inconsistent rookie quarterback play from Justin Fields, inconsistent play defensively. We've seen the Bears defense absolutely torched. We've seen there's points in the season where their production numbers against the pass have been pretty good, but they've been aided mostly by their pass rush, not necessarily by what they're doing on the back end. So the Bears are just a confusing team overall, Sam.
So if you take out week 3, it makes almost no difference to the numbers whatsoever.
There we go. Glad we.
So in this particular instance, it is not being skewed by week 3, but there are other numbers that are potentially skewed by that.
So what are you looking for in this one? Knowing what we know about Fields and what we've seen here, we hit a point early in the season where we said, look, Trevor Lawrence, he turned a corner. And we wanted to set a nice, easy narrative that the corner was turning. Actually, looking back, Sam, Trevor Lawrence's get-right game was against the Bengals, too. That was when he turned the corner. We're going to start the Cincinnati corner turners is what they are.
That would be a bad nickname.
Get-right Bengals defense. Is it an overreaction to say, well, Fields just graded at 90 against Pittsburgh, Monday Night Football. The previous game was pretty good, too, against San Francisco. Are we out of the woods here when it comes to Fields in his 36 grade, 60, 51, some of those early season grades that were just disgusting?
I don't think we're out of the woods, but I think he's definitely taken strides in the right direction. Fields has looked more impressive, and in particular, that Steelers game was a game that on paper before it, you could easily have seen that going in the other direction. Like, he could have, the Steelers have the kind of defense where they could have put him in that Cleveland situation where just nothing was working, but it didn't happen. He actually looked impressive and was really throwing some absolutely beautiful passes late in the game, and obviously made that key scramble, all those kinds of things. So, yeah, Fields looked a lot better last week. The Baltimore Ravens defense, though, is one of those ones where it's like Belichick against young quarterbacks, right? It's just throwing things at you that most teams don't. And so even if you understand how you're supposed to beat it, it's just seeing that for the first time in live action is different. And I could easily see this being a team that Fields and the Bears offense struggles with. It does feel like when they have problems right now, a big part of it is just the protection schemes generally. And I don't know how much of that is on Fields versus the offensive line versus the play call itself, but they don't yet seem like they're capable of correctly adjusting the blocking scheme so that it picks up the players it's supposed to pick up. And even if you're capable of doing that, Baltimore is going to make you wrong a bunch of times by sending guys from weird angles and dropping players off that you thought were going to be rushing, all those kinds of things. So I think he's definitely going to have some problems under pressure in this game. The question is it enough to kind of offset or to take away the big plays that he's capable of making? Yeah,
the number I always like to cite is the percentage of pressure dropbacks that have become sacks, and that has still remained an issue for Justin Fields. He's right about 30%. It's a really high number. You really want to be 15% or lower, and when you face a blitz-heavy team like the Ravens, they inherently get more pressure. Some of it's unblocked, some of it you get rid of it, you throw hot off of it or whatever. It might not be the most impactful pressure, but it's gonna get there. So I'm expecting Fields to get sacked another 4 or 5 times in this game, which has been again, pretty commonplace for them this year.
And I kind of expect Baltimore's offense to bounce back because I don't think the Chicago Bears are going to attack them the same way, and they've been way better when teams haven't done that to them.
I'm with you on both. Are we going agreement again here? Baltimore to cover the 4.5 on the road?
Yes.
Yeah, I'm not completely. I don't have a ton of faith in the Bears. Impressive, almost win against the Steelers on Monday Night Football, but I'll take the Ravens in this one. Washington Football Team at the Carolina Panthers. We got Ron Rivera versus Cam Newton trending to start for the Carolina Panthers. 5-5, the number 7 seed in the NFC. We spent all offseason, the entire season saying they went and got Stephon Gilmore. They got Cam Newton. They're just collecting all these Patriots from last year. The Panthers still believe they could make the playoffs, and as of today, they're in the hunt.
Just a couple of in the hunt playoff
teams.
They're the hunt. In the NFC.
They are the hunt. They're the hunted. The Panthers are being hunted because they're the number 7 seed right now. What are you looking for in this one?
Washington's right in the playoff picture as well, if you look at that graphic.
Yeah, every non-Lions team is in the hunt in the NFC. That's correct.
The New York Giants are a playoff contender right now. So obviously Cam Newton is the story with this game. Like, he came in last week. He was obviously he's a cheat code in short yardage stuff. It's easy, but now we get to see the one thing that Washington's defense has been doing well is still getting a lot of pressure. Even without Chase Young, I would imagine they're still able to get a lot of pressure on what is a pretty bad Carolina offensive line. So now, what does that look like if you're Cam Newton? You have the best receiving core you've ever had to work with. You have a good offensive mind calling the plays. You are capable of making some special things happen yourself, but you are dealing with a really bad offensive line right now, and you should be under pressure quite a lot. To what extent is Cam Newton able to just kind of offset that and say, I don't really care about this pressure. This is how I play the game. We're going to get it done anyway?
Yeah, good stuff. Sorry, I got Jimmy Smith quote tweeting me over here.
Good Jimmy Smith quote tweeting?
Jimmy Smith, yeah.
Why?
Well, because Josh Norris was making the point the other day how the Jets had given up 173 points, and that's more than the 2000 Ravens.
Yeah.
So, of course, I make my Mark Brunell jokes, right? I said, well, the Mark Brunell-led Jags scored 22% of those 165 points that the Ravens gave up that year in one game. 22% of those points in one game. So now Jimmy Smith, the future Hall of Fame receiver of the Jaguars, has quote tweeted me saying, well, who was he throwing to? Because Jimmy went off for 291 yards in that game. So, sorry, I can't focus on the football team Carolina game here.
Jimmy's selling autographed jerseys. You should get yourself one.
Oh, yeah? Yeah. Jimmy's he's active in some stuff here. He's active.
Just DM the man. He'll hook you up.
I will.
For a couple $100.
Jimmy was an awesome football player.
He was.
But yeah, the
should be a Hall of Famer.
Absolutely should be a Hall of Famer. He was as good as Marvin Harrison in their prime. They both had like 140 catches.
And didn't have Peyton Manning throwing in the ball. Now this is where your Mark Brunell love kind of puts you into conflict, right? Because
I can still love Mark Brunell and say yes, Peyton Manning was better than him. Like, I understand.
Good, because you need to.
I understand reality. I am unbiased in my evaluations. Always. I enjoyed watching Mark Brunell play. He brought me joy watching him play football. How's that? Anyway, speaking of joy, Cam Newton, infectious joy in the locker room. That's what they said. He brings all the energy and all that stuff. He's always brought that. What are you expecting from Cam, though? There's got to be a little rust from him, too. If Russ was rusty and Rodgers was rusty, Cam might be a little rusty as well.
Well, he played last week. We're all good.
True. And he just threw touchdowns and ran for touchdowns. So the short yardage game immediately gets better for Carolina. Do you realize how really good Christian McCaffrey has been, too, at catching the ball out of the backfield? He's they're 30 for 31 when targeting him, but a 93.6 receiving grade, 3.18 yards per route run. Where's the first down? McCaffrey's third in the league in receiving first downs among running backs. He's only played 5 games. So he really has been. I know we joked about the offense got so much worse when he left. Sam Darnold was relying on McCaffrey a ton early in the season, and he was converting first down after first down after first down. And we mentioned on the daily when we talked about Cam coming back, this might be the best group of playmakers Cam's ever played with, at least in name value. Robbie Anderson's production, how much of that has been dependent on Sam Darnold, but Robbie Anderson as a deep threat. DJ Moore, probably Cam's best receiver since Steve Smith, and McCaffrey coming out of the backfield. I'm interested in seeing that combo here. with Cam and the pass catchers despite that offensive line.
Yeah, I mean, it's a great group to work with, particularly with McCaffrey. I mean, McCaffrey last week, poor old Zaven Collins, the game fell apart for Arizona in like the first few minutes. They kept turning the ball over, but every time they turned the ball over, like the first play was somebody attacking Zaven Collins. Like the first one was McCaffrey out in the flat, and he just like ran around Zaven Collins, and then the next one was Collins blowing contain on the Cam Newton short yardage run. Like again, Newton just runs around him and stiff arms him as well. So the guy didn't actually play that much, but was basically responsible for two of the biggest plays in the game. But McCaffrey can do that to people, even elite, athletic, big, imposing linebackers. So he is a huge part of this offense. But I'm also intrigued, like, what does the system look like with Cam Newton there? Because he's been shoehorned into 3 or 4 different offenses that have never really they've been trying to make him more efficient, right? They've been trying to maximize the things that he can do while sort of limiting the damage that him not being the most efficient passer in the world from an accuracy standpoint down to down creates. So do we pivot back towards the sort of low impact Christian McCaffrey led offense that they tried to make him run? What is it, 2017,
2018, I believe.
18?
Yeah. Yep.
Or do they say, no, we have Robbie Anderson, one of the better deep threats in the NFL. We have DJ Moore. We've got players that can attack deep down the field. That's where we need to live.
On the other side, really quick, Chase Young out for the season now, unfortunately. Jonathan Allen balling on the defensive interior. Third best grade right now behind Cameron Hayward and Aaron Donald on the defensive interior. So keep an eye on Allen against that offensive line. You mentioned last week before the Tampa Bay game, if Taylor Heineke takes care of the ball, it's kind of like a different offense. Now, he got away with a couple last week that just Bucs dropped an interception or two, but Heineke made a ton of huge throws on third down. I don't know if they can keep up that third down success that they had last week and that 20-minute drive to end the game where the football team imposed their will on the Super Bowl contending Tampa Bay Bucs. So it is an interesting game, and playoff. One of these teams is moving closer to the playoff picture here. So where are you going in this game? Carolina by 3, by the way.
I will take Carolina.
Oh man, I'm sick of agreeing with you here. Washington's kind of like Miami, right? Preseason had some hype. We expected better from them, and now they're finally moving in the right direction, I think.
Briefly.
But I'm not buying into it either. I'll take Carolina. What does Cam look like? I think he just looks okay.
I think he'll look pretty good.
I think he looks okay. Just okay.
Okay.
But Carolina wins. Their defense, man. Defense is number 2 in EPA per play allowed against the pass, and that's going to give Heineke and the football team some issues. Pittsburgh Steelers at the Los Angeles Chargers. That is Sunday Night Football, like an old school Roethlisberger versus Rivers matchup. They had some, class of 04, had some good ones through the years. Well, the class of 04 is gone for the Chargers. It's Herbert time. Yeah. And Big Ben might be back from COVID. Mike Tomlin says they're building a game plan for Mason Rudolph's strengths and weaknesses. But Big Ben has had many times throughout the years where he has not been a part of preparation or the game plan or whatever, and he's just rolled in and played. So,
what does that even look like?
I don't know. That's like
what is the game plan
plays he's comfortable with or whatever.
What is the game plan that plays into Mason Rudolph's strength?
I don't know. It was some strong coach speak.
Yeah,
like we're gonna rally around Rudolph and what he does well and what he doesn't do. We're gonna do those things, and then Big Ben is gonna jump onto a moving bus, basically. Jump onto the moving bus and run the Mason Rudolph game plan when he's ready.
Tomlin says so many things that would be like ridiculous if it wasn't for the fact that he keeps winning all the time. They also do
That's
things.
not a ridiculous thing. That's a pretty normal coach thing to say.
Yeah, but like it's Mason Rudolph. You can't, you know what I mean?
You're going to build around Mason Rudolph. Like he does something well. He throws a good deep comeback. Did at one point at least.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't run the ball well, so they're not going to run zone read stuff. You know what I mean? Like he's just saying we're going to build around what he does.
They also do things differently to most franchises, almost top to bottom actually. Like the new CBA, the new West CBA, like the amount of practice time being limited and actual contact and stuff. When you go to like training camp and see how the Steelers hit versus other teams, it's insane. Like the Steelers are full contact, like full pads, ready to go from like day one. Everybody else is just jogging around doing their installs and stuff. It's amazing the difference between them. And, Tomlin says a lot of things that are kind of old schooly coach speak and kind of things that people were saying decades ago, and now most of them don't. And yet, again, like it works. Tomlin is doing an insane job with this team that really isn't that good. And this is, I think, an interesting game because of that. Like, you would look at this on paper and you say, easy Chargers win, they're better. But you have to give Tomlin some kind of credit for what's happening there.
Where's Greenline have I got to get Greenline up. Where do they have the offense right now for the Steelers? Because they have been right near the bottom.
31.
Yeah, this entire season, 31. And to be winning games. And, of course, yeah, that includes last week against the Lions with some weather and all that stuff. But even before that, they were pretty low. Number 31 in ELO rating, but still sitting here at 5-3-1, screwing up all of our standings. Steelers defense, though, ranks 8th in the ELO rankings. And so they've once again kept them close, kept them in the mix here. But this is the start of a tough second half, I think. Second half of the season for the Pittsburgh Steelers. Got to play Baltimore twice. It is the most difficult schedule in the NFL. And playing the Chargers, who have dropped a lot in our rankings, actually. They're down to 21st. So they've lost a ton of luster since early in the season when it looked like they could have been right in the mix as the best team in the AFC. The Chargers aren't even the team that is making this one of the more difficult schedule, the most difficult schedule in the NFL. But that's based off our rankings. I think the reality is Herbert, that is reality. But Herbert can play well, and the defense can stop the pass a little bit, and it's a tough game. I'm liking the Chargers too. They've just been in a funk though.
I'm kind of fascinated by where is this conservatism in this Chargers offense coming from. Justin Herbert right now is an average depth of target of 7.5 yards. There are only 4 quarterbacks lower than that. One is Jared Goff, one is Mike White, one is Ben Roethlisberger, and one is Kirk Cousins. He's also got a big-time throw rate, only marginally higher than Ben Roethlisberger. Like, he has a profile right now of a game-managing quarterback, really. Like a low big-time throw rate, one of the lowest turnover-worthy play rates in the NFL, a really low average depth of target. But then every week you turn on the tape and you see Justin Herbert making an insane throw that him and like 2 or 3 other guys can make. You're like, why is this not the offense? Like, why are we running this Alex Smithian type of deal here? Where is this coming from?
Yeah, I don't know if it's Joe Lombardi and it's the Saints, a Saints tree where they do win more in the horizontal game, right? The Saints and the Breeze offense is more underneath, and then they take their shots. They take a shot play here and there. They throw one up the seam and all that stuff. But it's like, when you talk about those offenses, like all those plays are in the playbook, Sam. Right. But it's about how do you get them in the flow? Like if you had a Drew Brees over the last couple of years, you'd say, we're going to take 3 shots in this game, maybe, right? And you just say, when we have Justin Herbert, you should be taking 10, right? You should just be taking more shots because of what he's capable of and attacking different parts of the field. So it is a curious trend for the Chargers that Herbert has been made to be a little bit more conservative, I'd say. The
one area where you would say, okay, I don't know how much of this is that offense forcing him that way is like his average depth of target last year was really low as well. He's been under 8 both seasons. Last year was 7.8. For his career now it's 7.7. Like they're
but those again, things so I think when you talk about stuff that the quarterback controls and the stuff that maybe a coordinator or whatever controls, sack rate we've seen is generally on the quarterback. That is a thing that moves with systems, right? Tom Brady doesn't get sacked a lot. It's going to happen in New England. It's going to happen in Bruce Arians' system, Peyton Manning, whatever. But we've seen average depth of target and the ability to attack downfield move with coordinators, right? We just saw Brady become more of a downfield passer in the Arians system. We've seen Matthew Stafford change coordinators, and that goes up by 4 per attempt. And so it comes to me, that comes down more to the play caller. Stuff like sack rate sticks with the quarterback. The ability to throw the ball down the field or be aggressive down the field, I think, falls more on your play caller. And even though Herbert has done it across 2 different play callers now in 2 years where he's been on the more conservative side.
Yeah, I mean, that's the point I'm making, is that it's been across 2 different guys from last year to this year. So if you're sort of looking at this and saying, oh, Herbert is just being held back by this conservative offense that's making him play in this Alex Smith style, you would be like, yeah, but I mean, it didn't look that much different last year, and it was a different play caller.
Greenline likes the Chargers here, I believe. No, likes the Steelers. Where are you going in this one? Chargers by 5.5, by the way.
Yeah, which I think is out to 6.5 now.
Okay, so that's more in line. Yeah, it is up to 6.5. You're right. So Greenline initially would have taken the Chargers, but 6.5 is a little bit too much.
Yes.
For Greenline at the moment. They would have been a little bit in between. I'm with Greenline here. I'll take Pittsburgh to just, keep it close. Again, this is dependent too. This is dependent on Big Ben being there. If it's Rudolph, I'll take the Chargers.
Even though they built a game plan around Rudolph's strengths and weaknesses.
Yeah, I think Big Ben will run a better Mason Rudolph game plan than Mason Rudolph will.
Wow.
That's my feel now.
I'm
out on Rudolph.
It's the Chargers, so they're always going to play a close game, but I don't want to agree with you every time, so I'm going to pick the Chargers to cover.
All right, there you go. Maybe you'll get Rudolph. By the way, he played about the same as Big Ben did on Sunday. Very similar style. They're not that different at the moment. I just think Big Ben has got a few more of those clutchy plays in him when he needs them. And he's got the history of doing it. The rest of the games aren't great, Sam. Miami Dolphins at the New York Jets. Oh, boy. Dolphins by 3.5 on the road against the Jets and Joe Flacco.
Yes, Joe Flacco. We need Flacco in the game because the Dolphins are going to blitz. God knows Mike White can't do that.
That's really what they were saying.
Yeah. They literally said, Zach Wilson isn't ready yet, coming back from injury, and the Dolphins blitz a lot, so we want Joe Flacco's experience.
You must love this. I mean, this is what you said you would do if you were the Broncos earlier in the year. We're playing a tough team, Drew Lock. We're going to go with Drew Lock. Tough team. Teddy's too conservative. Can't do that. You would come out and admit these ridiculous things that you should be hiding with coach speak. We joke about coach speak, but I feel like the Jets should be, Robert Saleh should at least be disguising this a little bit.
No. There is a huge difference between me suggesting that two very stylistically different quarterbacks might be better suited for individual games on a team that expects to win games over the course of the season.
But their style is dependent on their skill level.
The Jets, who suck and whose only positivity for the rest of the year is making sure your draft picks are as high as possible. For the Jets at this point to come out and say, we need Joe Flacco because he gives us the best chance of winning this pointless-ass game in the middle of November, that's ridiculous. Even if you believe it's true, which I'm not sure it is.
You used to really hate anytime Matt Castle played football.
Yeah.
And because once you know you've got Matt Castle, you know what Matt Castle is, right? You know what Joe Flacco is at this point. You just, we still don't. Mike White.
And Flacco, by the way, is better than Matt Castle was.
Oh, yeah. I get it. I think you could still get more information on Mike White. Is he going to be a long-term backup? Right? He had a nice game a couple weeks ago. Mm-hmm. It was fine. It was inflated against the Bengals, but it was fine. He was on a bit of a roll against the Colts on Thursday Night Football before getting hurt, and then he was terrible last week.
Yeah.
But, as an organization, aren't you better off learning more about Mike White and seeing the Bills have the best pass defense in the league. That's what he went up against last week. He would have success against the Dolphins, but you're that afraid of him against the blitz? That's just odd.
Well, you got to get the guy that gives you the best chance of beating the Dolphins right now. The thing to root for in this game, right? The Jets own the number 1 and number 2 highest turnover-worthy play rates in the NFL. Mike White and Zach Wilson. Flacco has a couple of those in this game. We could get number 1, 2, and 3.
So we're rooting for just turnover-worthy plays from Flacco.
Just a couple, just to get him up there into the top 3, and then the Jets can park it for the rest of the year, knowing that they've sewn up the top 3 turnover-worthy play rates in the NFL.
And then for the Dolphins, the Tua's back, right? Officially back. Remember, he was not healthy enough to start on Thursday Night Football, but he was healthy enough to come into relief of Jacoby Brissett and help lead the win against the Baltimore Ravens. So it's just more Tua going up against the Jets team that has given up 173 points over the last 4 weeks. And that was why the Jaguars discussion we were just having, the Baltimore Ravens of 2000 gave up just 165 points in the entire season The Jets have given up 173 over the last 4 games.
The Jets have a defense that can't stop anything, and Miami has the worst offensive line in the NFL by a mile. This is fascinating.
It's going to be great.
Miami's offensive line has given up 172 total pressures this season. I think the next highest team is 120-something. 172 would rank in like the top 10 from last year, like the whole season.
2018 Cardinals-esque. That was the Rosen Cardinals, right?
And there's one random Chargers year in there as well that gave up like a ridiculous number of pressures.
Not surprising.
But also, the line is doing that despite being protected reasonably well by a ton of RPOs and a pretty quick release time from Tua. Now, okay, Jacoby Brissett has been playing some of the time, so that's not going to help. But generally speaking, this line has been protected in a way some of these other teams haven't been. This might be the worst pass-blocking offensive line we have ever seen in 15 years of grading. Like, that is how bad we are talking here. So any analysis of Tua has to start with that as a caveat, right? This offense, he is working behind the worst offensive line we have ever seen in the last 15 years. Now, okay, we can still try and like learn something from his play, but we have to acknowledge that is a factor playing into this here. So I don't think, I kind of tweeted some of these things. People are like, oh, so Tua's good. It's like, no, look, we can't say that Tua's good. Like, there's no evidence of that. But I think you can say that I don't think we can tell how good he is based off what he's dealing with right now. And there is evidence that he makes both the offensive line and the receivers better than Jacoby Brissett, who we know is not like Jacoby Brissett isn't a worthless quarterback. He is a high-end backup who has shown he's capable of playing and starting games.
He's one of your favorites.
That too. But like, it's not like, there are quarterbacks that if you threw out there and you're like, oh, Tua's better than that guy, you'd be like, well, yeah. I mean, of course he is. Everybody is. But Brissett is like being better than Jacoby Brissett in a clear way in terms of making other people around you better, I think is a notable thing when you're discussing Tua.
It is one of the data points that really works in Tua's favor. The opposite of what we said for Justin Fields. The percentage of pressure dropbacks, which is a ton. Percentage of pressure dropbacks that turn into sacks. For Tua, it's only 12%. For Fields, remember, it was about 30%. Tua's tied for 6th lowest percentage in the NFL, which, again, lower is better. Dak is tied with him at 12. You're just behind Patrick Mahomes, Trevor Lawrence, Josh Allen, Kirk Cousins, guys that have done a pretty good job there. So Mike White's actually number 1, that number. So maybe Mike White does handle pressure pretty well.
Well, that or that number isn't everything.
That's definitely not the only number to look at for sure. By the way, Joe Flacco, I'll have to find, where is Joe Flacco in this number in his career?
It doesn't.
It's got to be over 20, right? I think he's over 20.
Flacco, obliviousness in the pocket.
Let me just really quick, pressure, 17.6%. He's been over 20 in each of his last, those were his first 3 seasons. Yeah. He's been over 20 the last time he had a full season. So, anyway, where are you going in this one? Flacco versus the Dolphins.
The not Flacco.
No, I think Flacco turns it around for the Jets.
Yeah? Gives them the best chance of winning the game?
Home dog. You never bet against Flacco as a home dog. That's a rule. That has always been a rule. That is the rule. I don't feel good about this at all.
Poor old Josh Johnson, by the way. Dude comes in here, balls out, and it's like, no, we traded a 6th-round pick for Joe Flacco so that we can beat the Dolphins one game.
Houston Texans at the Tennessee Titans. Titans by 10. Your number 1 seed, Tennessee Titans, going up against the Texans here. What are you looking for in this one?
This is the first time I've been even vaguely interested in a Texans game for quite a while, except when it became clear late in the day that Tyrod Taylor was going to be playing Jacoby Brissett. That got me on board last minute. But otherwise, just like ahead of a game, looking at it, you're like, eh. I think there's a real chance that the Texans spring a ridiculous upset in this game.
Really?
It's a 10-point spread. The Titans are favored by 10, and they're clearly a much better team than Houston, obviously. But I maintain that they have been riding their luck a little bit and riding a wave that's just unsustainable in terms of maintaining that peak pitch of emotion and intensity against really good opposition. Next week, they face the Patriots, right?
Yes.
So there's a couple of good teams on the horizon, and in the middle of it all is Houston. At home, in a game that you're favored by 10, you're going to win. If ever there was a game to like switch off mentally and look ahead to next week, it's now. And of course, with Tyrod Taylor at quarterback, the Texans are dangerous. I don't know. I just think
Your Tyrod speed. You give your Tyrod speed.
I do just think that seriously, there is a chance that Tennessee doesn't really show up in this game in a way that hasn't happened for like 5 straight weeks. They're finally the idea that they can't really run the ball well anymore, minus Derrick Henry, that they don't have all these receivers, that they basically got A.J. Brown left, and that's it. All of us, and they don't, if their defense doesn't show up and like generate a couple of turnovers like they did with Stafford and the Rams, all of a sudden I could easily see the Texans springing a ridiculous upset here.
So using Premium Stats 2.0, which again, 25% off using the promo code NFLPOD. Here's my analysis on the Titans, right? And might back up what you're saying. If you look at, and it's not always the best proxy, but just the overall team grade that the Titans have had in games this year. So you go to the Titans page, sort by overall team grade. The best grade that they had was against the Kansas City Chiefs in Week 7 when they dominated 27-3. But their worst grades, you've got Week 1 against the Cardinals, which has been that's the Titans, one of their throwaway games, right? Everything was bad. The last 2 games though, Saints and Rams, are the lowest game grades for the Titans. And so the Titans analysis is difficult because the name players, the names of the players should not be eliciting the results that they've been getting as far as wins and losses, which on one hand is really impressive. And we've talked a lot about Mike Vrabel, Coach of the Year candidate, what he's done. Ryan Tannehill continues to play really good football. The dudes are hurt, but guys like Marcus Johnson are stepping up. But the actual play the last 2 weeks compared to the rest of the season is a tick lower for the Titans. So even though they've beaten the Saints and the Rams these last 2 weeks, and the Rams one was emphatic, it was emphatic in part because of pick 6 and a pick to the 5. So those 2 plays completely changed the complexion of the Titans-Rams game. And they're plays that the Titans made, but they're like high leverage, volatile type of plays. So that's kind of like making your point here. The Titans haven't played as well these last couple weeks, but they found a way to win.
Yeah.
So on one hand, credit, they found a way to win. On the other hand, when you're predicting going forward, if they do that again, this is an upset watch. It's at least a cover watch for 10 points. So I'm gonna say Houston covering the 10. Maybe not go to the extreme level that you think maybe the Texans pull this one off.
Yeah, and look, they could easily roll and beat the Texans the same way they've beaten everybody else, but that's the whole point about picking an upset, right? It wouldn't. You're not playing the odds here. You're playing what you think has a shot of happening. So yeah, I agree. I think they're not certainly, but I think Houston is going to cover, and I think there's a very real chance they win this game.
I keep typing both. I want to go. I'm going back and forth on it. Because Tennessee is still a much better team than the Houston Texans. Give me Houston to cover too. So we're both taking Houston to cover. You think Houston's actually going to win too? Guaranteed. Guarantee victory?
Guaranteed to win, yes.
For Tyrod and
just
the
like,
Houston Texans?
Joe Namath.
3 more games to discuss. The New York Giants at the Tampa Bay Bucks. It's Monday Night Football. Bucks favored by 10.5, coming off a very disappointing loss against the football team. What are you looking for in this game?
Can that Giants offense start to piece itself back together again? They were starting to take kind of baby steps in the right direction, and then everybody got injured, and they've been miserable from that point on. Can they, they've had some time to get a little bit healthy. Andrew Thomas is coming back from IR. Can they actually get that functioning again? Thomas, it seems crazy based off his rookie year where Thomas was getting just a turnstile by comparison to Tristan Wirfs and to Mekhi Becton and all these other first-round tackles. He looked ridiculous, and he was the first guy taken. And he took a massive step forward heading into the year, and all of a sudden him not being there has been a disaster for that Giants offensive line. If he's back and performing reasonably well, if they get the receivers back, finally we might start to see this offense actually look okay again.
The Bucs have been like a completely different team at home versus on the road, and that's why I wonder. Vegas isn't overreacting to it because they're favoring them by 10.5, but the Bucs have averaged over 40 points a game at home and just 23 on the road. So they're coming off this road game against the football team where they just have not played as well. And now they're back home, and I think sometimes you get caught up in the last thing you saw. Bucs they're coming off 2 road losses. I think they bounce back strong here. Monday Night Football. Don't know where Antonio Brown. We don't have the official injury report as of right now just yet, but there's a Antonio Brown might be tough to get him back. Rob Gronkowski could be back, but I think that's also going to be a big factor. Once the Bucs get healthy on the perimeter with receivers and tight ends, they're going to be, just as dangerous once again.
Yeah, I mean, the flip side being that while we've been praising them for a while, talking about how great their depth is at receiver and playmakers and all those kinds of things, but when they've been tested and they've lost a few of those guys, it hasn't looked as good. It's been a real challenge for them. Tom Brady hasn't had his best game for a long time now. So
Brady's last 4 weeks have not been nearly as good as what he was the first 5 weeks. He's still barely the highest graded quarterback at the moment, and it's just holding on because he was so much higher than everyone else.
So it might be a case that down the stretch, Tampa Bay looks an awful lot better, or into the playoffs when it really matters, but they could still stumble for a little bit until they get all those guys back.
From a Bucs perspective, if you're looking for that number 1 seed and you're competing with the Packers and the Cardinals and all these other teams in the NFC, I mean, it is this stretch. It should have started last week. They are a better team than Washington. They should beat the Giants. They got to go to Indianapolis to play the Colts, and they go to Atlanta to play the Falcons. Like, this is a 3-game stretch where if Tampa Bay is going to get the number 1 seed, they need to take care of business because then they have the Bills coming up at home in Week 14, then the Saints. So the Bucs, didn't play their best game at all last week. A couple rough ones on the road against the Saints and football team, but I expect them to play much better at home here. Giants, Daniel Jones has just kind of tapered off. I know you mentioned the offensive line and everything, but tapered off after a really encouraging start to the season.
Yeah.
Daniel.
I want to see them get healthy so we can see what that actually looks like, because I was encouraged by Daniel Jones earlier in the season. It's been ugly recently, but I don't think it's his fault.
The Giants coverage unit that I called feisty all last year, 3 straight grades in the green from a coverage standpoint against the Panthers. The Chiefs, they held Mahomes and the Chiefs to 20, and then the Raiders. So they're also trending in the right direction. I don't know if I'm completely overrating trends in recent weeks and all that stuff, but there are some interesting things in there. The Giants have been torched for a few weeks against teams like the Cowboys and the Rams, and now they're got a little bit better leading into their bye. Where are you leaning in Giants Bucs Monday Night Football?
I think the Giants cover, but Tampa Bay wins.
You're going Giants here, huh? I'm buying into the Bucs home away splits here, so I'll take the Bucs to cover the 10.5. San Francisco Giants.
Nope.
My old team.
Yeah.
Buster Posey, if you're a listener, we need you tomorrow night. Come catch University of Cincinnati. San Francisco 49ers, because we were talking about the New York Giants, and I went to San Francisco, just blended the two, and still bitter they released me.
I would be, yeah.
Yeah. Sad. What a sad. I was so on my sister's birthday. Rough day at the end of spring training.
It's cold business.
San Francisco 49ers at the Jacksonville Jaguars. The Niners are favored by 6. Saw a fun little stat, CBS Sportsline. They love to put fun little stats that are small samples and whatever the story is. But Jimmy Garoppolo's got the best road record of all time. Did you know that?
The best road record of all time?
800. He's an 800 quarterback on the road, 24-6.
I didn't know that.
It's it's small sample, Jimmy Garoppolo, Patrick Mahomes, Lamar Jackson, and then Brady and Manning. So, Jimmy's basically the best quarterback of all time on the road.
Yeah. He's also the best graded quarterback in the NFL over the last 3 weeks.
Oh, yeah.
That right up, it's like Jimmy Garoppolo's been playing so badly, we've got to have Trey Lance out here at some point soon. And then Jimmy G has a good game. It's like, all right, kept the Wolves at bay for another week, and then has another good game, and then beats the Rams, has another good game.
They're cooking, man. They're cooking offensively.
The last 3 weeks, Jimmy Garoppolo is the number 1 graded quarterback in the NFL. That list is fascinating, by the way. Number 1, Jimmy G. Number 2, Mac Jones. Number 3, Justin Fields. Number 4, Kirk Cousins.
It is a fascinating list, and also why we probably shouldn't take 3 and 4 week samples. But I mean, that is Jimmy Garoppolo. Again, he now has a 70 grade for the season. Last year, he was a 67. The year before, 77. The year before that, it was small sample. Before that, he did have a little stretch of an 86. But he's just, water finds its level, man, and he was well below his level, and he's getting back. This is kind of what he is. He's a QB that grades in the 70s.
This is better than his level, though. This run.
Well, the last 3 weeks is, I'm saying, but you take the whole season, and now he's where he should have been. He was never as bad as what we saw early in the year. He's probably not as good as this stretch. He's somewhere in the middle.
Sure.
Which is what his season grade says, a 70.
I mean, I'm kind of curious as to how long he can sustain the good run, because I still believe that we are like a bad Jimmy G game away from them to just toss the keys to Trey Lance and being like, all right, you're the guy that gives us the upside. The season's kind of on the line here. Let's see what we've got. But we haven't had one of those for 3 weeks.
I'm starting to buy into the company line that this is like Jimmy G's team, though. And their line is like, yeah, it's in 2021, it's Jimmy Garoppolo, and he's the guy. He gives us the best chance to win. I really think they're going to ride that thing out.
Yeah, but he only gives you the best chance to win when he's playing like he has the last 3 weeks. When he played like he did the first however many, that wasn't giving you the best chance to win.
That's true. The company line 3 weeks ago was, I suppose.
Yeah,
I suppose he's the starter.
Exactly, and I still think that that's the case. I think we're like one terrible game away from them being like, I mean, all right, let's think about that again. It's just that he's literally week to week has been kicking it down the line a bit.
Man, Deebo Samuel was so fun to watch on Monday. He's questionable with a shin, limited participant on Wednesday, but they used him as a running back. I am all in on all of that. We spent a little time in the offseason talking about the value of using running backs and the receivers as running backs and all that stuff. That was fun, man. He is tough. You just want to get the ball in his hands as much as possible, and he's having an incredible season as far as creating big plays.
49ers are another one of those teams that's quietly getting healthy. Trent Williams back at left tackle, George Kittle back at tight end, Deebo in the lineup. Like, when they have those guys, those are three of their more important players. When they're all playing, that's a big reason why Jimmy G is looking a lot better.
So the 4-5 Niners, we have a 31% chance for them to make the playoffs. Carolina, who's ahead of them in the standings, we have them at 19%. So those of those teams mostly looking for the 7th seed, Minnesota at 36%. They're 4-5, 36%. And then the Niners at 4-5, 31%. And they are both higher than the team, the Carolina Panthers, who is ahead in the standings, because the Panthers have a very difficult schedule, but the Niners 26th most difficult schedule, so certainly on the easier side when you talk about what they have going forward. Of course, this week against the Jags, when they're favored by 6, is a big part of that. So of course, on the Jags side, I will say pass rush has been better in recent weeks. One of these days, Trevor Lawrence is going to stop trying to turn the ball over, but I don't know if it's going to be this week.
I agree.
You think the Niners cover on the road here?
Yeah.
All right. Was it in Jacksonville? No, it was in San Francisco a couple years ago. The Shanahan. It was 2017 when the Jags had that really good defense, and Shanahan just, it doesn't matter this week, but he absolutely lit them up like Christmas Eve or something like that.
I mean, look, you got to remember that Urban is convinced they're right on the cusp. They're right there.
I think one of these weeks the Jags defense puts up a good game. Like we're going to come out.
They already had it. It was the Josh Allen
2 weeks
game.
ago. They did. Josh Allen's cooking, man. San Francisco, give me the Jags. No, I'm not doing it. I'm not taking the Jags to cover.
Go on.
I've done too much of it.
You can do it, and then you can send Jimmy Smith the clip.
All right,
maybe he'll give you a free jersey.
Jags to cover. Trevor Lawrence takes care of the ball this week. He's doing it. Trevor, big-time throw. 4 big-time throws, no turnover-worthy plays coming out of this game. Trevor Lawrence. San Francisco, come-down game off the Monday Night Football, and we got Jimmy G, Trey Lance watch coming out of this.
Okay.
All right. Oh, wow. Detroit Lions at the Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
Cleveland scored 7 points last week. They're favored by 11.5 at home against the Detroit Lions. Jared Goff's been hurt, and Tim Boyle's been taking some football snaps.
They'll need to score more than 7 to cover.
Yes. Yeah. That's why you tune in.
Yeah.
To the PFF NFL podcast.
Am I crazy to think
Yes.
that Tim Boyle could actually be an upgrade for Detroit? Jared Goff's been playing really badly.
I know.
Like, terribly. And look, I was kind of on board with the idea that Jared Goff might not look quite so terrible in a new environment with a quarterback coach that isn't trying to, like, hey, do what I say until the voice disappears in your head and then just figure it out yourself. It hasn't worked. He's been awful. Now, it's a bad situation. It's not all him. But the Dan Campbell line from a few weeks ago kind of is true. It's like, look, it's not a good situation. We're a work in progress. Things are, it's going to take some time. But Jared Goff has to be, better. Has to make some plays. Has to do some things that he hasn't been doing. And that has to happen. Hasn't happened. In fact, if anything, it's gotten worse.
You had mentioned this in the offseason at one point, and I was hoping it would never be the case.
Oh, right. I said that, right? I
You
said
did
Tim
actually
Boyle
say
will
this.
get snaps at some point.
This is not a new take for you here in Week 11.
That's true.
This
I'd
did
forgotten
happen before the season. And just for those of you who don't know who Tim Boyle is, He went to
Shame on
UConn.
you.
And
Shame on you for a start.
Eastern Kentucky, big strapping young man, 6'4", 232, got great QB body and the whole thing. And there was a point at UConn where he had 1 touchdown and like 11 interceptions. I mean, there's nothing in his statistical college profile that says, man, he should be a future NFL quarterback. Rolls into the preseason for Green Bay. 2018, he's like the buzz of preseason. The preseason in 2019, 356 yards and 6 touchdowns and an 80 PFF grade. Like, he actually played well in the preseason. Didn't play great in the preseason this year on only 41 dropbacks. But let's just forget about that. Tim Boyle is a phenomenon. He is an August phenomenon is what he is. Not like almost like Kyle Sloter.
No. Come on. Let's not put that evil on
Sloter.
that.
Tim Boyle, a phenomenon. So if he does end up playing football, we could actually just see him, chucking it all over the place, and who knows what happens.
He's not so every now and again you get a backup quarterback playing a game, and you're like, ugh, like there's just nothing. Like there's no point in this game now, right? Like we're getting nothing out of
You
this.
only want backups where you haven't seen them before.
Yeah.
You just want
not just that I haven't.
box. You want like the unopened box.
Not just that I haven't seen them before, but that there's something somewhere in the dude's profile that says, all right, watching him might be kind of interesting, right? Like a few years ago, everybody was actually personally insulted at the idea that Nick Mullins would be playing a football game, and they had to sit through it. But Nick Mullins in college was a really good quarterback, and within the Shanahan offense, you're like, this might not be crazy. Like, this might actually be fun to watch. And it was briefly. Now, okay, it turned out Nick Mullins over the long stretch was not good enough to be starting games in the NFL. But for one game, he tore up the Raiders defense, and it was kind of fun to watch. Tim Boyle is very unlikely to be a starting quarterback at any point in his career. But we've seen multiple years now of really good preseason play from him. And he's got size, and he's got tutelage under Aaron Rodgers, whatever that's worth. There are things about his game that make you go, all right, I'm curious to see how this works in one game against the Cleveland Browns.
I still want to see Jared Goff. I want to see Goff bounce back here.
What is with you and needing to see Jared Goff play more games? How many more games do you need to see of Jared Goff
A couple more
before
seasons.
you are convinced
I need a couple
that
more
it's
seasons.
just not a thing?
Because he had good years with the Rams.
He had like one good year.
He had solid years with the Rams.
Yeah.
Solid quarterback
And
with
then
the Rams.
he fell off a cliff. It's so steep an angle that his own team was like, not only are we moving on from you, but we're like willing to trade a first-round pick and a salary dump to make it happen.
Maybe they were wrong.
Yeah, you think?
Not going right. Not going well the last couple of weeks. Stafford, no, they weren't wrong. They were the right.
Still going better than Goff.
Stafford's definitely better than Goff. I get it. Greenline doesn't think it's the spread's strong enough. So Greenline likes the Browns by even more than the 11.5.
Greenline clearly hasn't factored in preseason Tim Boyle into the equation.
No, that would bring it back down to like 6 probably in the Lions' favor. Preseason Tim Boyle, 17-point difference.
I'm just saying, I think there's a real chance that Tim Boyle has a better game than we've seen from Jared Goff.
What's the weather like in this game? Is this going to be another weather write-it off for Baker Mayfield game?
It depends whether Tim Boyle beats him up or not.
Weather Sunday. Baker going to bounce back here or what? Ooh, 47 and rainy.
Well, then he's definitely going to be better than Goff would have been.
Maybe that's why.
He's got hands big enough to hold the ball.
Goff's got that like rainitis going through. Dan Campbell does not want to watch Jared Goff play football once again in precipitation.
Yeah, look, Tim Boyle's out here with a 9 5/8. So
Much
5
better.
full eighths higher than Jared Goff.
This is analytics.
It's science.
This is analytics.
In the rain, you need those 5/8.
The Lions have a football information department, not an analytics department, and I'm sure they're using that football information here to help make their decision.
Well, that's football information.
It is. It's very good football information. Will Baker Mayfield and the Browns, as banged up as he is, look better than they did last week against the Patriots?
Can't look worse. can it?
Almost certainly, right?
Yeah.
So it's going to be another good game for the Browns, another good game without Odell Beckham. And their defense should look better as well, whether it's Tim Boyle or Jared Goff, and not a lot of guys to throw to. I'll take the Browns. I'm going with Greenline. Browns to cover.
Yeah, I think they'll cover, but I think Tim Boyle will look better than Jared Goff did.
All right. Well, we'll see. We'll never know unless they both play in the same game. If they both play, we'll have some A/B analysis here. But don't sleep on Dan Campbell coming off his first non-loss, too. Coming off his first non.
What's that going to do?
I have no idea. Maybe they're on their way to a win. Upset win.
Working their way up?
Yes.
Loss, draw, Win.
Yeah, first non-loss. It's a big day. Big day for the Lions. I'll take the Browns to cover. Where are you going?
I already said
I don't remember.
the Browns to cover.
Browns to cover. A lot of agreement this week. Smart. Not going to pull away from me this week. There we go. That's all. That's 14 games. The 15th was on Wednesday's podcast. That was the Thursday night preview. So there we go. We'll be back on Monday. Thanks to everybody for tuning in. Don't forget your promo code, 25% off any PFF subscription using the promo code NFLPOD. We need more of you to sign up because, we've got competitions with the other podcasts. And they're trying to tell us, hey, higher percentages of their listeners are signing up and all that stuff. And that is unacceptable. We can't have that. We're a team here. We're a family. And we're offering this to our family members only. NFL Pod, 25% off. So we appreciate everybody here. We appreciate everybody that's joining the PFF family through our subscriptions.
Is this happening on the show right now? He's showing
No,
me.
that's someone's computer. No.
Are you sure?
Oh, were they?
I think they might have
Was
been.
that on the show?
I think
were
they
they
might
showing
have been
you?
showing people what you get with your premiums. See, there we go.
Oh, yeah. That's how you do it. That's where you go.
See, we're advertising. We're selling things here now.
This is good selling. Thank you, Tyler.
That's
This
how
is
you
great.
give back.
This is
to
where
us,
you go.
The podcast is you subscribe.
Yeah,
using
we're
the promo
actually
code
showing it.
PFF, or what was our promo code? NFL Pod.
NFL
That's our
Pod.
promo code.
NFL Pod.
That way
NFL
we get the credit.
POD. That's where you create your account. That's where you do all the stuff.
Now,
So,
we're out of here.
Circled
We
it.
got baseball tomorrow.
All right. Tomorrow, baseball. Hopefully, look for some footage.
me
Find me a
back.
catcher. We'll be back on Monday with all the Week 11 reviews. See you guys. Braves fan.